Okay. Good evening, Holliston, and welcome to the February 26th meeting of the Holliston School Committee. I'm going to call things to order, and we will get set. I think we'll start with our consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? It passes. And we will move right on to report from student representatives.
So this Sunday, Theater 370 is performing their very own written and directed show, Releve, at Attleboro High School in the preliminary round of the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild Festival competition, and they hope to advance to the semifinal round. And then auditions for their spring play, The Laramie Project, are next Thursday and Friday.
Yesterday, the Medway, Holliston, Millis, and Norton Co-op girls alpine ski team, including Holliston's Maggie Morton, won the Alpine Ski State Championship. And over break, the boys and girls track teams competed in the D4 State Championships, where the girls team finished in a strong 5th place. Numerous school records on both sides were taken down, and Lucy Downen became the D4 State champ in the mile as a freshman. Now Lucy Downen is individually qualified to compete at the New Balance Nationals meet in March, in addition to the girls 4x800 team.
To continue with sports, the varsity boys hockey team had their second round playoff game today and suffered a hard-fought loss against Pembroke, but still have lots to be happy about after their exciting win against Neshoba Valley Tech last night in the first round. And then the boys varsity basketball team is going up against Burlington tomorrow and hopes to advance into the second round of the playoffs. And then finally, wrestling has also had a busy last 2 weeks at their sectionals competition here. They placed third, had 3 individual champs, and sent 8 boys and 2 girls to the D3 state meet the following week. And then at that meet, they put up a great effort, coming only 2.5 points shy of the team title. And then individually, Henry McElligott became, for the second time in a row, state champion, and 7 out of the 10 athletes placed. And then all 7 of those athletes have moved on to the All-States championship this weekend.
Our 2 regional student advisory council representatives have been hard at work with other Central Mass reps researching the effects of different lengths of unbroken learning time in school. They have begun the process of collecting data from schools and administrators to hopefully begin drafting a plan for presentation to DESE in the coming months.
And then to close, so students are concerned about going to the June 26th date, but are very open to finding solutions, whether that be professional development days or other holidays. Specifically, many students have expressed concerns over jobs because they begin around the time of June 26th, and it is simply not feasible for many to have to be able to take finals on the 24th and 25th when they already have commitments to jobs in other states and things like that. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. School committee individual comments? Frank?
Yeah, no, just quickly, we survived the snow. Totally agree with that on 26, so do that. You know, really the resiliency of the town too. Really appreciate all the town resources. I know streets are still being cleaned. If you look at other towns, I've heard roads haven't been even touched yet, which is wild to think about, but everyone came together and we got back to school on Wednesday, so appreciate everyone who stepped in and helped there.
I just want to thank the number of people who have reached out regarding the school calendar. I know there are lots of emotions and feelings about it, but we got a lot of emails, there's a lot of talk about it, and I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight because I know there's a lot to talk about. No comment from me.
No, good, thank you.
No additional comment? And I'm all set. Do we have any public comment? No. Is there any public comment on Zoom? You can raise your hand if you, no? Nope. Okay. So we can move right on to our mid-year goals update from the
You're the first one.
So we're going to start with doing a quick district district update, but I really want to dedicate most of this time for the principals to share, because really the mid-year is about trying to present data and where we are in the goal process mid-year. So I'm going to be very brief and then hand off to Principal List and Principal Manning, and then we'll hand off again to Principal Keim and Dr. Slaney. So, as you know, we're always aligned to our strategic plan. This is our 4th year of our strategic plan, and next year will be year 5, and I imagine that the district will be starting to engage in the process of considering another 3 to 5 year plan. With our mission and vision have been very clear in all of our work, our budget, our PD, and all of our goals have been aligned to the strategic initiatives of our Building Bridges Together strategic plan. You'll see on these links for each of the lead slides. If you want to delve deeper, there's a link to each school and then the district and what the multiple 33 initiatives, the specifics for each of those, because we're only going to hit some of the key things for this conversation tonight, but feel free to delve into those at the links as well. So under Arch 1 communication practices at the district level, and you'll see anything we discuss district-wide, then the principals will address more specifically at their building. We've been still continuing to work on updating as we've done curriculum reviews and have had curriculum resources change. That means we have to go back to the drawing board on stage 1 and update all of those. And stage 2 is continuing, and all that work, every time we align a new resource, has to be looked at year to year. The curriculum team is meeting horizontally and vertically regularly. We've done a lot of work on our website to help support our multilingual learners related to the resources for families. The kindergarten night also, that's a night where we've really tried to work to expand how we're reaching all diverse learners and expanding resources for those nights. And then we're working on cybersecurity district-wide. As you know, a lot of districts, and we've been, with Power School, we've seen a lot of cybersecurity breaches. So Mr. McLeod has been working very closely to try to get all of our district. He's trained a lot of paraprofessionals. We'll do additional training with our teachers as well. Under Arch 2, social emotional well-being. As you know, we've spent this year, we talked about our goals really focusing on MTSS Tier 1, multi-tiered systems of support, and all of the work we've done as a leadership team this year has been aligned to that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. You'll see that we're really delving into Tier 2 and 3, but we're going back to Tier 1 consistently to try to really align that work, and that's going to impact some of the work that we're doing at the district level for our DCAP and our data team. Absenteeism continues to be something that we're chronically working on. As you know, we've seen some improvements in that area, and the schools will talk about that a little bit more. But that task force has really worked to expand and try to get kids back in school and help them support with their social emotional well-being. We've also been working on looking at an equity lens for all the Metro West surveys and aligning all the work that we're doing with Mood Check and so forth. And that also aligns with our work with PBIS and Ruler. They're all aligned to help support students in Tier 1 as well. Under Arch 3, teaching and learning. You heard us talk a ton about the data dashboard. That's really become an incredible tool district-wide, but we're trying to expand that. We didn't want to overwhelm teachers with that. We started with giving it out to curriculum leaders and all of the administrators. We didn't want it to seem like more work for the teachers to go through this, but it's a really helpful tool for them to be able to look at their students in real time when we give assessments. So we are going to expand that as a pilot to Miller teachers, not expecting them to automatically, but they can voluntarily look at that. And then as more and more people get comfortable using that tool, we imagine we'll be able to roll that out to other buildings as well. And then if you look at a central admin team has really looked at some of our meetings. We've actually changed our strategy so that every other meeting with the central team, we're actually looking at data together. That had not been something we were fitting in. And we've decided we're doing problem-solving protocols together. So each of the leaders at central office had presented a different problem, and then we'll turn back to those a second time throughout the year. That's been a nice change this year to really dive into data as a leadership team together. And again, I talked about PD already, really aligning all of that work with our MTSS work. You'll see, that's a common theme every time we do PD days, and Joni presents on that regularly. And the vision of a graduate has really been immersed into the curriculum review process as well. Under talent and resources, I'm working with our HR department we've drafted a hiring manual. We really want to make sure we're trying to be more consistent with the hiring and retention and mentoring process, so we're really working to try to streamline that process and have that consistent with all of the buildings. Everybody does it a little bit differently. We want to make sure from an equity lens that we're really trying to bring diversity into the district and try to follow a consistent process with that. So that'll be rolled out by the end of the year. Dr. Jordan and the team has done a lot with capital improvements, and we've been working with the town manager. As you know, one of those will be a big discussion, hopefully to try to get the MSBA feasibility study on for a spring town meeting. And then, in addition, we're working on infrastructure at Rams and the high school, and we're also working on our learning walk process and trying to update that year to year. We have another one coming up that we just had to cancel because of weather at the high school, so we'll be rescheduling that, and we'll have updates on that in the future. So this is where I wanted to talk about just the real work that the leadership team has been dedicated to this year. We really did a team professional goal that I shared with you at the beginning of the year around multi-tiered systems of support, and particularly Tier 1, and really looking at what happens in the general classroom before we go into Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. We also want to look at what we can do with our DCAP, the District Curriculum Accommodation Plan, because a lot of the accommodations and modifications that we can give students within a DCAP are general ed accommodations. We don't necessarily have to write a 504 or special ed for plans for students. I mean, every child should be entitled to certain things under our DCAP, so we're working to rewrite that as a team and then roll that out with staff so that they understand that these are not like additional time for students. You don't need to be on an IEP, or you don't need to be on a 504 to get additional time. That's just good practice. So I think trying to streamline that and avoid having to write plans for students that may just need a little something extra that we can do in general ed in Tier 1. And with that, Dr. Slaney, Assistant Principal Morrow, Assistant Principal Taylor, and Assistant Principal Culliffe attended a DataWise workshop. I attached a link there if you want to learn more about that. It's through Harvard. I did this training many years ago. It's continued to refine and review and been updated, and I know Ms. Morrow has done this training and some others. It's a 3-day, very rigorous training, and I really appreciate that the 4 of them went to this training and gave up the time. We tried to support them in the building, but it's a lot of work, and they have a lot of projects to do in between all of these meetings, and then they'll receive coaching throughout the year, and they'll continue to work on a problem practice together. And then they're coming to our leadership meetings, our monthly meetings with the full team, and they're presenting how we can move some of this data work as a district, aligning again with our MTSS work in Tier 1, and then also making sure that the DCAP aligns with that. So this is really something that as a leadership team we've dedicated this year to, because this work will live on regardless of what strategic plan or visions you move forward with in the future. And with that, I'm going to hand off to Principal List. And again, there's a link there for his specific action steps and the progress they've made mid-year at the high school, if you want to look into that. But he's going to start with his slides.
So there is the first one was a link to all of the action steps, the goals and action steps. Here's some overview of focused in on some of the goals that we had this year. And just a reminder, everybody, a lot of our goals at the high school level stem from our NEASC visit. We're actually in year 10 of our decennial cycle. At the end of March, we'll have a visit from NEASC to talk about how we've done through our goals. And the hope with NEASC is to help sort of shape sort of the strategic plan for the high school, shape how we move our work forward over the next 10 years. And we'll start working on that with them at the end of March when they come to visit. They come in, they will talk to different teacher groups, they'll talk to students, and they look at how we progressed. So this is some good practice for me. Just looking at these here, again, looking at a lot of ours, again, have to do with how we support our most struggling students, our high needs students, how we build in tiered supports for our students, how we bring that supports, as Dr. Kuska said, into the classroom, and how we create a positive school culture for our kids and our teachers. So that's a lot of what's going on here, and a lot of that shift is going on with the new school schedule, which I'll talk about in a minute. So, in terms of, for all of us, we keep talking about attendance. one of the things that our schedule gives us, if you look at that bottom chart there, is we get, because of the block schedule, we get a snapshot into like actual grades at the mid-year. And looking at how students are doing overall, and you can pretty much see there that nice correlation between attendance and student success in their classes. If you dive deeper into that, each one you can start to see that being in school matters, and so we really have had a focus on that this last year and the year before and this year. Also looking at our data this year, what we noticed is that we looked at our chronically absent students, that more than half of them are they are excused absences. So when you look at our seniors and how many of them there are, there's a ton of college visits. When you look at our juniors and sophomores and freshmen, a lot of excused absences for doctorates and all that. And so we're seeing more of that than we are of students who are just missing and we have no idea why they were absent. So it was actually a good sign to dive into some of that data and understand and see. Probably have to have a conversation about college visits, because they are just like, there are tons of them. It's a lot of school days missed. It was, I think it worked out to like the average senior was missing like 7 days basically already. For some college visits this year. So a lot of college visits this year. So again, we looked trying to understand like why kids are missing school and what they're doing. And so our counselors do an amazing job of bringing schools in to visit, but there is a need and a want to go visit a lot of these schools and to see what's going on. So it's a lot. And our seniors are actually leading the way with, when you look at our chronically absent, it's our seniors leading the way with the chronically absent. And most of that is, again, attributed to college visits. It's not as much vacations as it used to be in that. So it was just interesting to see there. And one of the areas that we are trying to, right now we're doing a great job of identifying students. We can find them, but what we're working on right now is building out how we support those students coming back. So students who are chronically absent, those who are out 5 days in a row, 6 days in a row, especially in a block schedule, how are they making up their work? How are they getting time? How are they getting those supports? And so that's sort of the piece that came out with this is looking at how do we support those students throughout that. So that's some of the work that kind of shifted for us. We weren't really looking at originally, but now we are as a team trying to understand how we can support kids. And especially, again, no matter what schedule we're in, when you miss that many days, it's hard. And when you're behind, I tell all the freshmen when they walk in the door, like, my biggest piece of advice to you is just don't get behind. Do your work, don't let it linger, and that will solve so many of your problems. And so we need to figure out ways to support kids when, not by choice they're out or they're sick or whatever's going on. So that's an area that sort of has shifted in terms of our thinking with attendance. Another area that we're looking at is we talked a lot about students taking their AP exams, and this year we had 350 students take the PSAT exam. One cool thing that the PSAT does, the exam does, is it tells you based on the student's success on the PSAT how many of them are ready to take an AP class. And again, depending on how they do on certain questions in certain areas, are they ready for which AP classes? And so what you can see in this chart here is that just if you look at something like chemistry, we had 41 exams taken in 41 exams taken in 24-25, but we had 213 students who, based on the data that PSAT gives, would have scored a 3 or higher had they taken AP chemistry. So we have really bright kids across the board here who are very capable, and so we need to find ways to challenge them and get them the confidence and want to jump into some of those AP classes. Because when you look across the board at this, something that like we have so few of these students actually taking these classes, but based on the scores in their PSATs that they would do well in those AP classes. And so as we look at making sure that our students take the AP classes next year, AP tests, sorry, encouraging students to find something that they want to challenge themselves in, and this is looking at this data now because we start our scheduling process, and so students are looking at what classes they want to take, and many of our AP classes count as their core classes. They're not all electives. So really giving students an opportunity to really to find something they're interested in and go after it and pursue it if they're passionate about it. Because I mean, these are supposed to mirror college classes, and almost all of our kids go off to college, so they should experience what that's like. If that's what we believe our kids should be doing. So again, this is some of the data we didn't have before because our students weren't taking the PSAT. Most of our students weren't taking this PSAT. Also, just thinking about the future, more and more schools are requiring SAT and this type of testing, and so wanting them to start thinking about how we support that. And I think we talked about last time at the beginning of the year about how we give students, start thinking about how we give students the opportunity to take the SAT here, because it's becoming more challenging for students to get access in testing centers and in different schools. So something we have to look at for next year as we start planning. So. Something I talked about at the beginning of the year was our grade distribution of students that are not labeled, that students with a disability, students without disability. We're seeing, we wanted to look at the outcomes of those students, and we are definitely seeing a growth in students not only getting A's and B's, but that are passing all of their classes. What you can see was from the end of last year, at the top for like students with a disability, students without a disability, 89% of them had A's and B's in their classes. So far this year, we're halfway through, but we're at 90%, and 99.6% of students without a disability pass all of their classes. And then when you look at the end of last year, and then this year again, you look at, we have 83% passing all the classes, we had last year 67 and 83, and then so far this year 75 and 92. The bottom is this year. So we really worked at trying to identify students. One of the only measures we really have is what the teachers share, which is grades. When it comes to the high school. And so we really started to try to identify students early and try to bring in supports for them, either through interventionists, either through our SAT, and to try to find targeted support for them in content areas to help with making sure that they're able to pass their classes. So we've seen some of that work there improving. Also, just thinking about, again, our students pushing themselves and our students taking things that they're passionate about, is that this year so far, 75% of all of our students are enrolled in at least one honor or AP class, and 86% of seniors are. So it's, again, just seeing that trend going up for our seniors who are really trying to move themselves forward. Look, this is a document we gave out to incoming seniors next year about how to help them understand their schedule for next year. A lot of our work has been on making sure that our teachers are ready for the shift in the schedule. We're looking at aligning our curriculum with the added minutes that we have. So looking at scope and sequence documents, building in those tier 1 supports, doing RPD around that, making sure that students are, again, as was said earlier, that it's not about necessarily having an IEP or a 504, but that we can build these supports into the classroom for students. And there are ways to do that. And so looking at how do we build that into the planning that's going on now for next year, working through our PD days in professional learning communities, on the building in these tier 1 supports, and again looking at this stems from our NEASC recommendations. Additionally, we are extending those endorsements in college and career pathways for students, and so we submitted for more grants this year, areas of biomedical technology and computer science and information systems. So hopefully we get those and give students access to some pretty cool opportunities. And last but not least, a lot of what we talked about is how do we share what's going on here at the high school. Again, building this culture and community, and we did our students and our teachers did an amazing job highlighting that at our opportunities night. We really want to find ways for the community to understand how great this place is, how the relationships that our teachers build with their students and then with each other. And just as a sign of that, I'm sure you all know that yesterday we were dealing with our the gate valve issue and having to go home, and we were worried about buses and how we fit all these kids on the buses. But the amount of students who walked by and everybody's like, "Hey, you want to ride home? You want to get home? I'll get you home." Like, it was just really cool to see the students taking care of each other and making sure everybody got home. I think we ended up with like 40 kids on the buses, and most of them ended up taking the bus to middle school so they could walk home from there. So it was just cool to see the culture here. It's in a really amazing community of our teachers, and it was really cool to be able to share that out on that opportunity night to hear what's going on. And I just wanted to shout out the kids on that yesterday because they were awesome. It was pretty cool. So happy to answer any questions. Or not yet? Are we doing questions after? Or are we doing? You do questions now?
Specific for the high school.
It's up to everyone.
What's up?
You mentioned AP is really good news there. Do we have any insight on how many are signed up for the test yet?
Tell me what?
How many are signed up for the test? Or
It's the middle of it right now, so they're finishing, they're doing signups right now, so.
The slide you had with the SAT correlation for the AP like suggestion, is that shared directly with and explicitly with students? Like, you should take this?
Not yet. So I was playing around with it actually like about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was like, oh, this is cool. Let me see what this is. And so then I just saw it. So looking at so now I have to figure out what to do with it all. But it was just great to see and thinking about how do we get students to think about what they might be passionate about and what they do and how to use that data as well. Because again, we want to make sure they are ready and wanting to take that, and then also so making sure that they're prepared with that. And it's also hard within any schedule we have now to make sure that it's working with their counselors to make sure they have that information so that they can help guide them through that process, because I think just to hand it to them might be overwhelming for some students who may not have been thinking about it or might not have thought themselves to be AP students. And so I want to go about it in a way that's supportive for the students and not just hand them like, hey, you got listed as you could do all these AP classes. That's really like an overwhelming thing, whereas their counselors would really be able to sit with them and think through what they might be interested in.
Even their teachers as well in that subject
And yeah.
area. I'm just thinking like, if you've connected with a subject area, teacher, to have them say, I think you'd be great at this.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was just cool to say. I'd never seen it before, but it's
Okay, so hand off to this
I
meeting.
made a fun puzzle out of my slides, I guess. That's my third slide. So,
What happened?
I don't know. If you can go one slide up? No? No, the other way? There we go. This is just the page that has the link where you can dig into kind of our mid-year updates, and if there's anything anybody wants to dig into a little bit more, then come to Conversations in the Middle, which is a monthly coffee at our school that no one comes to, but we're still having them. So that's that link, and then on the following page, that's sort of our highlight reel, and I think what you'll notice about the district goals in the high school and the middle school and both elementaries is that we have some through lines as a district. Our communication practices are focusing on accessibility and translation and improvements, and then our social emotional well-being have our ruler through lines, which is our social emotional curriculum, but we also have some really strong MTSS supports for kids. Teaching and learning, you're going to see a lot of MTSS updates and a lot of UBD and sort of curriculum review information, and then talent and resources. We're just still aiming to reinforce the things we have in place to keep the great people that we have and then attract new people as well. I really wanted to focus a little bit more on the data today rather than reading through all the slides. So sorry, but if we can go back to the slide that says why attendance matters, there we go. So what I did at the top, we talk about attendance at the beginning of our presentations every single time, and I heard somebody say last time, I forget who it was, like, why are we talking about attendance? We know our attendance is good. And so I wanted to I added a link there that really suggests some reasons why it's so important. And so you can click on that link and kind of find out a little bit more. It definitely talks about, the decrease around the COVID times and then the increase, but it's very slow. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at now is like we're sort of at this plateau and kind of figuring out why, and just using sources like the American Academy of Pediatrics. Doctors are looking at as attendance as a pulse point for kids, especially in middle school. Middle school attendance can be one of the greatest determiners of, how a student does in college, more even than high school courses. So we are really focusing on this heavily at Rams. There's great news, of course. If you look at sort of both of those columns, the attendance on the left, our attendance rate is 95.3%, which is
great. And you can see some good news in our tardies. Last year we had, at this time, 2,100 tardies, and this year, at this time, we only have 1,700 tardies. That's a lot, but it's better by 400 seats, right? There's 400 more kids in the building. But I put some stronger numbers in there so that we could really see what that looks like. So our total absences this year is 2,391. That's a lot. That feels like a lot. And even though we've improved in our tardies, our average tardies every day, we have 17 kids that average tardy. Why that's important to us is those are starts and stops for kids. So when a student is absent, they have to catch up, and then they also kind of feel a little bit less confident and may lose some of their sense of belonging that we work so hard on. Those are really big deals to us and to middle school kids. We do find that most of our absences are verified, so we know where kids are, but they're unexcused. That's about 65% of our absences. And we do find a decent decline on Fridays. Our attendance rate is 87%. Pre-vacation, we're down to 80%. And after vacations, we're down to 85. Chronically absent students, we have plans for those students, and they're all improved from last year, and they continue to improve this year. But there is a group that I don't know if we're meeting all their needs, and I'm kind of just bringing that as a problem today, and I'm hoping that we can kind of get a little bit more work around it as the year goes on. We have the same issue with tardies. Mondays and post-break, we jump up to 29 to 39 tardies a day, whereas on an average day, we're at about 17. We do have some kids that are chronically absent 3 or 4 times a week, so we're working with those students. If we can click to, it's not the next slide, but it's this slide, quick example and next steps. Just to put some teeth in this. So, I know the numbers are super small, but the top scatter plot is our ELA scores from last year, and then the bottom are the math scores from last year, MCAS. And you can see at the top, we see from kids that have 0 to 2 absences to kids that have 18 or more, an 18-point drop just in their MCAS scores. And then in math, it's greater than that, probably because math is sequential, and it's a 24-point drop. So those are pretty significant things that we're seeing. And I think we're trying to manage what we know families value, which is that flexibility, and we're trying to balance that with the momentum that our students have. And when one student is out or comes in late, it's sort of a ripple effect. There's that stop for that student, and then that kind of catching up, but that requires a teacher, and then the other students who may need assistance or may be able to dig a little deeper are kind of on hold waiting for those catch-up moments. So I know it's important because we see it every day, and we hear about it every day, that family flexibility. I just don't know how to balance that. We have programs, and we have MTSS supports, we have Tier 1, all the students get their attendance and tardies. We have Tier 2, where we're kind of meeting with counselors, we're meeting with families, we're making phone calls. We have Tier 3, where kids are maybe re-entering after periods of time being away from school. But there's a group that we aren't sure what to do with right now, and there's probably about 80 students in that category. We just don't have the bandwidth to kind of meet that need. So that's the issue that we're facing as we dig deeper into attendance. Next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about our climate and culture. This is a really important part of our building. And what we do every single day. And we have our supports in place for this. There's a really big connection between what what we have as goals for the kids and what the kids want, and then what we do to support the teachers in that work. So we do have Tier 1 sort of culture and climate work for all kids in all classes, and we have our ruler lessons, but we've adapted those further this year and created a sort of reservoir that teachers worked on, that those lessons are more RAMS friendly. They're real-time needs for what our kids are going through, like in those moments, and those happen every week. And we also have our peer leader lessons that are identified through our data, our behavior data. Some of our Tier 2 work in culture and climate around kids is that we're working with, counselors. They're working in small groups. They may have a quiet lunch where they're doing some activities. They may have support services. And then Tier 3, and this is more around behavior, this is where we get into that administrative support. But some of the exciting things that I think, to me, when I look at our data, is if you go over on the right. So this year we've had 55 incidents kind of reach that Tier 3 level at RAMS. Not 55%, but 55 incidents. And out of those incidents, because of our approach, our multi-level approach, only 69% of those kids have kind of reoffended, right? And that's only 38 kids. So most of the kids are making a mistake. Maybe if it's at that Tier 3 level, they're getting that administrative support, they're getting those restorative practices, they're getting that coaching, maybe some community service, but then they're not doing it again. And so that's great, encouraging news. We do have some students that are still, a little higher, but it's still only 3 to 6 kids, and they're very low-level incidents. We don't have any out-of-school suspensions for the last 2 years. Our goal is to keep the kids in the building. And our high-needs kids make up about 42.5% of those incidents, and that matches the percentage of overall kids that we have in the building. So I think we're doing really good. And I can't say enough about the teachers and the staff in our building, what they do for each other and what they do for the kids every day. Anecdotally, we recently met, we were meeting with the interventionists, and I said, we haven't had anyone come through our revamped SST, like I'm nervous, like no kids are being referred. And so we went back out to the team leaders, and they're handling so many situations with kids at the Tier 1 level, which is appropriate for middle school. I'm so proud of them, just so happy about the work that they do every day with the kids and with each other. And then we're going to talk about teaching and learning a little bit. So I ended up putting in our fall to winter growth this year on IXL because it's a really great data point to kind of take a look at. At the top we have our ELA fall and our ELA winter. At the bottom we have our math fall and our math winter. And super small numbers, and you can dig into those later if you want, but these are some of the gains that we're seeing. So 6th grade ELA had a 4.5% increase in students on or above grade level. 8th grade ELA is the strongest cohort performance, growing from 69.6 to 74.6 on or above grade level. 6th grade math, 12.9% jump in proficiency. 7th grade math, significant foundational growth with 24.7 increase in proficiency. And we have to remember that IXL testing, if you're like, wow, we should see bigger gains, it's adaptive testing, so that means at the beginning of 6th grade, it tests on the beginning of 6th grade. In the middle of 6th grade, it tests on the middle, so the test gets harder. Students have the opportunity to work on where they are consistently throughout the year, and they work on that a couple of times a week during RAMS block, and through some of their classes, they have the opportunity to jump forward if they would like. But the benchmarks are the benchmarks, and that's for everybody. So the growth is really more significant than what the numbers show, and I'm really proud of the way the kids and the teachers are working on that. The staff meet to look at this data and make adjustments real time in their curriculum, and the curriculum interventionists meet with the kids all the time and look at their IXL data. We did increase the math intervention model by 274% this year. We were able to increase the literacy by 158% in terms of numbers of kids that we see, and we're hoping that next year that increases more. So the more kids that we can see in those interventions in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 situations, the better. We're also going through some curriculum reviews, and during those curriculum reviews, we're really looking at our kids with high needs, our ML resources, our different ways that kids approach content, and so all of our curriculum reviews currently happening are considering all of our high needs kids as one of the greatest priorities in making those resources high quality. Next slide. Just a little bit more about, our strongest growth and kind of what we do to support kids, and then some student examples anecdotally. Like, we might have students that are plateauing, right? And it looks like their grades or their IXL scores aren't increasing, but a third of those kids are already above grade level. And so, when we really dig into the data a little bit more, we can see the individual kids, we can see who's performing above grade level, and even though they might dip a little bit, those dips and plateaus are very normal in the range of what we see with adaptive testing. Next slide. And this is just, I don't know, these were some sort of big wins year over year, because I like to look at sort of what we were doing last year and what we're doing this year. The details are there and you can dig into those, but generally speaking, year over year in math. So in math, 381 students are now on or above grade level, compared to 240 last year at this time, which is a gain of 141 students on or above grade level. And then year over year in ELA, right now we have 430 students now on or above grade level, compared to last year. We had 243, and this is winter measures, and that's a gain of 187 students. Go Rams. Last slide. This is how we do it. We don't just look at the data. We look at every single group. We look at every single historically marginalized group of students. We look at every kid. We look at every cohort, and it's our MTSS strategies really just talk about the teachers and the approach and like all the different layers in our behavior, in our attendance, and in our teaching and learning. The end. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
I just want to make sure, if you go back to this slide with the IXL data, I think it's slide 18. Yeah, perfect. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. So if I look at the fall,
Yep.
8th grade students,
Yep.
about 70% on or above grade level. So in the fall, before they've been introduced to 8th grade materials, 70% of kids were already demonstrating proficiency on 8th grade material. Am I reading that correctly?
Beginning of 8th grade material.
Beginning of 8th grade.
Yep.
So- okay.
So basically 7th grade mastery, and they're not done with the 8th grade curriculum.
Right, but they're already showing they're
Yes.
mastering some of the 8th grade
Yep,
skills.
they're ready to go on the 8th grade
Okay.
work.
And then when it gets to middle of the year, we've gone up to 76%.
Yep.
So we've added like another 10 to 12 kids to on or above grade level.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's with the material getting more difficult.
Okay. I mean, our kids are coming in really strong, so just like Mr. List's presentation as well, there's a lot we can do to really support and accelerate that growth. Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you.
Especially in math.
Yeah. Yeah. They have some strong skills. Yeah.
Since we have you, can you give us a little bit of an update on where we are with the rollout of the math changes in math that we're...
Yeah, I mean, we're following the subcommittee recommendations. We have accelerated in 7th grade, and then we have the Algebra 1 in 8th grade. We're just pulling out the data now because we just did the winter benchmarks in January. So putting together the recommendations for the students. We did follow the guidelines, and we sort of took out any teacher recommendation. We're really just looking at numbers right now. We know that when it gets closer to the time, we'll have many conversations with families who have questions about data or wish to move their students to or from, a different group, and we're open to those conversations. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we are. We're just really pulling out the data because we just got the benchmarks.
And how many levels are you planning for 8th grade next year?
There will be there's the small group math, and then there's 8th grade math, and then there's Algebra 1. Those were the recommendations from the subcommittee.
What is just small group math is?
It's a different level of math. The kids may be working on different skills. They may be working on some 7th grade skills or some gaps. We always have had that.
That exists now.
Yep. Yep. So what we added was the 7th grade accelerated piece.
You mentioned that you got a big jump in number of students that are receiving interventions.
Yeah,
I understood
in
that.
math, because we were able to add the math tutor this year,
Okay.
we increased the numbers by 274%.
That's great.
Yeah, which is awesome. And
Do
in
they do that during Rams block, or is it, do kids do
throughout
it
the day,
throughout the
there's
day,
different
too?
points throughout the day where we can do that depending on what the needs of the students are. But the math tutor typically sees kids during Rams block.
That's great.
And even though there's a one-woman show at Rams right now, she increased the number of students that she sees by 158%. So adding a reading tutor to that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else for Elizabeth? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
To the elementary. All right. Dr. Slady.
All right, can you just go to the next slide? Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm a little blind, so I can't see that far, so I'm going to focus in front of me as well. Much like my colleagues, this update reflects middle-of-the-year updates across our 4 arches: communication, SEL, teaching, learning, and talent and resources. And what you're really going to see, as my colleagues have talked about, is that we've just built stronger systems, clearer communication with families, consistent SEL practices, stronger Tier 1 instruction, and we're really tightening up our MTSS alignment. So that's really the theme of what we've been doing at Placentino. And today I'm going to really highlight some of the key points in our attendance in math and literacy. So if you could go to the next slide. So overall, you can see our chronic absenteeism data year over year is getting better. Last year at this point, it was 15.2. Now it's 11%. Our tardy data is holding pretty, you can see that trend line is pretty similar as it was in the past. What we found when we dug into that data, the families that were tardy last year are tardy this year. But it hasn't increased by time. It's usually 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So that trend didn't really change with, Mr. Alfred, I know you talked a little bit, wanting to know if our tardies changed with the change of start time. It's pretty similar, and it's the same trends that we saw last year. So what's working? We've increased our family communication. We have individual plans with our counselors where they're reaching out to families to really support them, and we're really trying to capitalize on proactive outreach. We're monitoring our data in real time with our counselor team so that when we notice trends, we can reach right out to them instead of waiting till our concerns really escalate. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is the pattern. Our chronic absenteeism is by highest in our preschool. And then as our grades, as the kids move up in the grades, it goes down. I believe it's kind of that trend of, especially in preschool, because it's a paid program, that a lot of families, it's daycare as well. So there's a different level of commitment to coming to school or not. So what we're focusing on in preschool is really looking at our students who are there on IEPs and receiving special education, and looking at our chronic absenteeism for those students as it really impacts their progress. Then what we did was we dug into our chronic absenteeism of the reasons why. So one of our biggest contributors is daily illness. So if a student has, the flu or that piece, we're not getting doctor's notes for that, but those are reported from families. And then the other part of that category is just unreported. They're not telling us why. They're just calling it absent. The next category is travel and vacations. Our travel and vacations, it's 36% of our absences. We have families going on a lot of vacations at our level, ranging anywhere from a week to some of our families who are traveling up to 5 to 6 weeks. And you can see that counts for a lot of our absentees. So what we're trying to do is really focus on absences that are within the control. So we're not really focusing on our chronic illnesses or that piece, but more on preventable absences. So much like Mrs. Manning talked about, we're trying to balance that piece with families of having empathy with expectations, trying to have proactive communication with families while also having them help them understand that impact of missed instruction. And while I think that there's a thought of, well, they're young, they can miss school when they're young, what we're noticing is our students who have chronic absenteeism in second grade, when I look back, they had it in kindergarten or first grade, and then they had it in kindergarten. Those who came to preschool, they also had it in preschool. And it's just going to keep carrying up. So that's what we're really trying to do, is educate our families now of the importance of making those decisions to help them come to school. If you could go to the next slide, we're going to transition to academics. We're going to start with math. So we're really seeing that our math program is becoming successful. We're still seeing growth in some areas, which I'm going to talk to you about. But as you can see, this is our overall math placement. 64% of our kindergartners are now at or above grade level compared to 29% at the beginning, 49% in first grade compared to 19%, 50% at second grade compared to 33%. This reflects our stronger Tier 1 instruction that's happening in the classroom. And as I said, we believe this is really a result of the continuity of the adoption of the new math program, the consistency from pre-K to 2, and really up through grade 5. Okay, next one. So our goal is around algebraic thinking. And as we dug into this data, this won't be much of a surprise. In order to have strong algebraic thinking, you need to have strong number sense. So we are still focusing on both of those areas. And for the students who are struggling in algebraic thinking, they are still struggling in number sense. So, while that's our long-term goal, we know the pathway to get there is through building stronger number sense. And our students need to build a deep relationship and understanding of numbers before we can successfully get there. So much of our focus of our instruction in our small groupings and our Tier 2 and in the MTSS model is intentionally strengthening their number sense and their foundation for algebraic thinking. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. So how do we get there? We are working a lot with our teachers around building in data meetings, identifying students who are still identifying their number sense, and building that balance before, if a unit is really working on algebraic thinking, having our teachers understand that number sense building has to still be part of it. We can't just kind of push through to algebraic thinking. And so Kristen Marino, who's our incredible STEM person at Placentino, working on how we can build in real-time PD for our teachers, using that through curriculum meetings, staff meetings, grade level meetings, coaching sessions, being able to support teachers. I would say 80% of our teachers adopted the goal around number sense and algebraic thinking as their teacher goal this year. So teachers are intentionally using hands-on materials in any lesson. This is a major focus, and it's helping support our students get there. We're going to transition to literacy next. So overall, these are our iReady results in each grade level. And as you can see, green is on or above grade level. And you can see that The top line is our middle of the year, and the line underneath it is the beginning of the year. So you can just see visually the shift of how many more students are now in the green than where they were at the beginning of the year. This reflects our teachers' strong commitment to adopting the science of reading and being able to support all students. If you can go to the next one. 66% of our kindergartners are now at or above grade level compared to 36% at the beginning, 45% for first grade compared to 11%, 60% for second grade compared to 40%. You can go to the next slide. So beyond iReady, as you know, that we have a strong focus at Placentino and Dibbles, and our goal this year is actually looking at zones of growth. So beyond just having students being at or above grade level or meeting benchmark, what is their growth from where they are and where they're going? And this is a new measure for all of us, to be honest with you. So what we did was we set every student at average growth. We thought that was a good place to start for our first time using this measure. And what we're working on with teachers is not focusing so much on, are they on track, are they not on track, but really looking at the months of growth that they're meeting, and helping them identify students on where their gaps are. So things that we have been doing, and you can go to the next slide, is looking at really how to benchmark and progress monitor for our students. So I'll talk a little bit about this at the end when I give our dyslexia guidelines update. But something that we're doing at Placentino, and I know that Miller would talk about this as well, is that we've increased our progress monitoring for our students. So some students are being progress monitored monthly, some students are being progress monitored every other week, and we have some students who are being progress monitored every week. It depends on what their needs are. And what we're able to do with this data, especially if we see a student who we felt wasn't making growth, the first thing we do is increase their progress monitoring so we can look at where they are. And how we read this piece is, if you're looking at that trend line, is that too small?
No.
Okay. If that trend line, we look at those dots, and if those dots are above the trend line or on the trend line, we're moving in the right direction. If we see 3 to 4 underneath, that calls for us for a shift in what we're doing. So if you go to that next slide, when we look at students not making progress, the first thing we do is we dive right into the data of what's happening. And we look at, how do we adjust our instruction? Do we need to adjust our group size? Do we need to, in group, to look at intensity of what's happening? Are they receiving it 2 times a week, and now we need to increase that to 4 times a week? Or do we need to change our approach? And this is really what our focus has been for literacy, and really kind of digging into that piece. So I feel really good about where we're going, while I share that that's a new data point for us, and sometimes it feels a little alarming when we see some of that data. We have to start somewhere, and our teachers are really up for those conversations. So that's where we are at Placentino.
On that last slide, when you mentioned students that were receiving small group instruction and monitored weekly, biweekly, or monthly, is that small group instruction with a reading interventionist or with the classroom teacher or a combination?
Yeah, yes, and yes, and yes. So that's the other piece that we're looking at. So no more is it just you're going to go somewhere and get additional reading support. It's a partnership with the classroom teacher. So they might be working with a reader tutor or a special educator or our reading specialist, and the classroom teacher is also building into interventions into their WIN block as well to be able to support that. So this is a change from previous years. Our teachers actually do our progress monitoring, not just our reading specialists or our tutors. Our teachers are actually doing, we all kind of have caseloads where we kind of dig into it, which we find that since they're actually taking the data, they own the data a little bit more. So.
And I know you're comparing like beginning of year to middle of year literacy data. Since you've changed the model this year, are you also looking at it from last year to this year to see if we're seeing more growth?
Yes, yeah. And really what we're seeing is that we need to increase and strengthen our Tier 1 instruction. That's why we're really excited about this ELA curriculum review. We've seen the fruits of the labor from math and the outcomes for that. And our teachers are working really hard, too hard. They're creating materials. They're creating all those pieces. And it's not consistent from classroom to classroom. So once we're able to have that consistent curriculum, then we can really focus on what instruction looks like in that piece for every student, regardless of the classroom. So I think we're doing really well in spite of not having that curriculum, and I just think that next year we're just going to kind of keep going and fly. Yeah.
Before we get started, I want to do an advertisement because next Wednesday and Thursday we have the book fair. In the multi-purpose room. It's always a fun time for students to get books. It's like 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock both nights. Also, next Thursday night, we have Mathapalooza, a fun STEM evening for families. We encourage everybody to come out. Last year, we had huge participation from the Leos at the high school who came down and helped us, but those are two big things that are going on at Miller.
And is that your birthday too? Is that your birthday too?
No, not this year.
Not this year.
Not
Okay,
this year.
sorry.
Some years.
Okay.
Not this year. So tonight, Brenda Morrow and I want to highlight the action steps this Miller School has taken, unpack key data points, celebrate progress, and identify where we will continue to focus on for the second half of the year. A theme you're going to hear throughout the presentation is intentional focus, what we've been focusing on this year. The areas we are prioritizing were identified at the start of the year based on the MCAS results and beginning of the year iReady data. Next slide, please. Our goal in Arch 1 is to increase efforts to inform and engage families in academic, behavioral, and attendance progress. This year, we have strengthened our weekly family communication with audio and translation features to increase accessibility for all families. We launched a report card landing page to support clarity around our new standards-based report card. We've strengthened monthly attendance communication, and you're going to see some positive data later on in our presentation. Gathered feedback from families through surveys and SMORE polls in an effort to ensure our communication is meaningful to parents. You know, we ask families, what are you looking for? What, do you have some questions? Some things out there where, you know, even on the aesthetics, you know, put a link to the lunch calendar instead of putting a picture of it because it takes up so much room, you know, when somebody's popping it up. Other things we might get questions, what temperature do you go out at recess? Or what do you have to wear to be able to play in the snow? Or, you know, what does a switch day mean at an elementary school for Unified Arts? We're just trying to even out the number of Unified Arts days throughout the year. Just meaningful feedback that we assume people know, but they don't know. So we're trying to adjust to that. We have a Student Advisory Council and Superintendent Roundtable to elevate stakeholder voice, sharing ideas about ways to create a culture of belonging and being our best self. One of the things that they did this year was cram the cruiser, and we really did cram the cruiser this year. And how we got them involved, they made flyers, inspirational posters, you know, and, you know, they made announcements in the morning to help spread the word to bring in foods for families. In the second half of the year, we'll refine our communication based on feedback that we're getting. Next slide, please. Our goal in Arch 2 is to foster a positive, inclusive school environment with Tier 1 PBIS and Ruler implemented with fidelity. This year, we have a building-based and district-wide goal to strengthen Holliston multi-tiered system of supports, working to better align school and district systems. We have added MTSS drivers and domains to all our meeting agendas, so we are aware which components we're working on, whether it be curriculum meeting, whether it be grade level, grade leader meeting, whether it be our district admin meetings. We strengthened PBIS aligned across schools and expanded ruler with differentiation informed by mid-year survey feedback. Both Brenda and Jamie on our PD day presented professional development. Brenda did PD on executive functioning for all of the teachers, unified arts teachers, classroom teachers, special ed teachers, while Jamie took on the task of doing it with our paraprofessionals. Some of the feedback we got in return was it was the best PD they've had in a long time. This piggybacked with Peg Dawson doing a more global view of executive functioning that they all got to participate in the afternoon. We also strengthened subgroup monitoring of attendance and behavior, particularly for students with IEPs and multilingual learners, as our data showed a need for this at the beginning of the year. Next slide.
All right. So I'm going to just review some of the data related to attendance. And as Dave mentioned, we prioritized looking at all of our students and also looking at the subgroups that either showed the highest number of chronic absenteeism in the past or had made significant improvements, and we wanted to make sure they stayed on track. And when we look at our chronic absenteeism data, you can follow the category across the slide, knowing that we're looking at all students first, then students with disabilities, followed by our English learners and FELS, which is how the state calls our multilingual. We use the state's accountability target from last year to help us know if we are on track for this year, knowing that a new target's going to come to us in the spring. That's the only gauge that we have at this point to check that. And we're really careful about monitoring anybody who's absent 10% or more, no matter what time of year it is, because we know that that's a precursor to be chronically absent. So the numbers that we have here are showing 10% or more absent as our percentage. So let me just give you an overall summary of that. Overall, our chronic absenteeism rate is currently 6.6 for all students, which is below our accountability target from last year, which was 7.1. For students with disabilities, the rate is 12.0, which is below the percentage from last year, but above last year's target. And for our English learners and former ELs, the rate is 14.7, which is above the target from last year. However, it's important to note a distinction around the way we're gathering this data. Many of the students included in this data are under 18 days absent, which is what it is to be fully chronically absent by the state's terms. They're not chronically absent yet, but they are approaching that threshold. So for example, if you follow across all students, 37 students are currently between 11 and 15 days, which is not chronically absent, but they're included in that percentage because we want to make sure that we are intervening in a timely fashion with those students. And then a smaller subset have crossed into the 18 plus, which I think it's a 7 up there, that are 18 or more days absent. And that's for the whole school. That's the number of students that we have in that category. And we know the story for all of them. There's interventions and supports in place. This tells us that we have a window for early intervention, and we're monitoring these students closely and working with families. We're also leaning on community supports when we can, and recently learned about a new service from Cartwheel called the School Avoidance Program. And so Jeriel Vernay gave us that resource at our last task force meeting, and we're bringing that into our school to use as a resource for those tricky situations where we feel like we don't necessarily want to make it a legal or court case, but we want to be sure families have what they need. So we're trying to be sensitive in those cases, and that should be something that will be helpful for us. Our school-based and district attendance task force are working to analyze root causes, identify subgroup patterns, and strengthen our tiered outreach before patterns become entrenched, which is what Jamie was talking about, those second graders who were chronically absent, but actually they were chronically absent in kindergarten. We want to try to continue to work on that. Moving on to teaching and learning. Our goal is for 80% of our students to meet or exceed their growth targets in math and literacy, with special attention to numbers and operations, and kind of in alignment with Placentino there, in math, and informational text and writing in literacy. These domains were identified at the beginning of the year based on MCAS and beginning of year iReady data, and we entered the year intentionally targeting these areas. I want to point out a couple things that are pointed out here, and then I'm going to go into some data. We weekly are reviewing our iReady MyPath usage, which we know is a precursor to growth and performance growth for students. And we're removing some barriers of time and access. We are recognizing that it is becoming, and I think we talked about this last year as well, it's a bit of a challenge during the school day to find the allotted time, so we're working through some of those barriers still to this day. We have targeted intervention cycles in literacy and math, and also with our multilingual learners, linking interventionists with curriculum specialists and our ESL teachers as part of our student support team to discuss student assessment data and integrate supports. That was a missing piece last year that we found with all of the students that we had on success plans from not making progress on access last year. We really need to link those teams, so we've been doing that work intentionally. We're reviewing student progress with classroom teachers and special educators, but we definitely need more time for this. And adjusting the frequency and focus of interventions based on need, which was what Dr. Slaney was talking about on her slides as well. We also have a focused writing unit that has been created and implemented with grade 4 to explicitly teach responding to text, which addresses the writing issue. And it's also pictured, there's a little debrief pictured, which I'm sure you can read. It's really legible in the middle of the slide at the top. That's one teacher's example of their progress towards their goal this year for students, because our 4th grade teachers all took on the goal of working on this. They've been collaborating and thinking deeply with our humanities specialist, Caitlin Kinsky, to look at instructional moves, resources, real-time coaching during instruction, and looking at student work to adjust instruction based on need, and there's been some really great progress made there. Allie Curley, our tech integration specialist, has also been working to show how online resources like Kami can remove barriers for students when writing. We have a lot of maternity leaves in grade 4 this year, and I want to give a huge shout out to all of our long-term subs for all of their hard work jumping in and being a part of this writing goal and all of the goals. It's a huge task, and they're doing a wonderful job. Our next steps include identifying high-impact Tier 1 strategies, strengthening collaborative planning structures, monitoring growth of students with low achievement and/or low growth, and piloting the updated ELA curriculum resources that are happening very shortly. The next slide talks about our DIBELs. We did not use the growth measure at Miller this year. We are looking at the placement of students and thinking about who is noted as needing intensive support, strategic support, or are they on core or above core. It aligns with how we look at our iReady data as well. And we are committed to following through on our goals that we set at the beginning of the year of looking at the cohort of students with disabilities and students that are not labeled as having a disability, because we are committed to seeing growth in both categories and looking at that subgroup. So that's why you see data in that way here. Overall, the majority of students without disabilities are at or above benchmark. They're in the blue or the dark blue. However, students with disabilities represent a larger percentage in the strategic and intensive bands. Of the 94 students on IEPs requiring strategic or intensive instruction, 84 of the 94 students have a targeted reading goal. So that was important for us to explore to make sure that the needs were being addressed. Of the 73 students not on IEPs requiring strategic or intensive instruction, 50 are currently receiving a literacy intervention from a literacy interventionist. 10 have exited that support due to growth, so they have most likely shifted from the intensive area to strategic, and that work can happen in the classroom, talking about the question related to who's delivering interventions. And then strategic intervention is happening twice a week for 30 minutes, and intensive intervention is happening 3 times a week for 30 minutes. Doing this deep data dive has allowed us to ask more questions and dig deeper into the experience of the students not accounted for in services or intervention with classroom teachers. This data also confirms the importance of strengthening Tier 1 literacy instruction while simultaneously ensuring high-quality targeted intervention. We are applying practices from our dyslexia study group to this work. Using what we learned, we're analyzing error patterns more precisely, we're aligning intervention strategies to specific skill deficits, and we're collaborating closely with literacy interventionists and special educators to identify next instructional steps for students requiring intensive support. This next slide talks about our iReady growth at the mid-year, and you'll notice that it's broken. There's 2 different boxes. One is focusing on our reading growth, and one is focusing on our math growth. And each grade has its label and arrow pointed to where it plots in the quadrants. It's broken into quadrants, and the plots mean the growth and performance related to national norms for each grade in reading and math. We want to be on the right side of the plot. This shows that the majority of students are increasing their understanding of grade level standards in reading and math overall. If they have high performance, it means their performance is within the 50th percentile or higher. And if they are showing high growth, it means that they are meeting or exceeding the growth goal for them from the beginning of the school year. So we're in really good shape in both areas. In general for all of our students in reading and math, and that's kind of giving you the overview. The next slide goes into our goal specific to reading for this year on iReady. At the midpoint, we want students to have achieved 50% or more of their typical growth. That's our goal. And in reading, 64.9% of students are currently on or above grade level. The median progress toward their typical growth exceeds 100%. It's 106% up there, meaning many students are making solid mid-year progress. Our goal of achieving 50% growth at the mid-year was met by 69% of students. We have seen nice placement shifts from the beginning of the year, with Tier 1 shifting from 50 to 65 of our students, Tier 2 shifting from 30 to 35, and Tier 3 shifting from 20 to 10. Our focus domain and informational text has also seen some improvement, and I'll explain a little bit more about that on the next slide. And then just like we talked about on the DIBEL slide, we want to be sure that we're looking at the cohort that we wanted to see the most progress in, and also dig deeper into the data to learn more about the student experience. So on one side, you're going to see the breakdown of students with disabilities and their performance in the domains on iReady, and then specific to our focus on informational text. And then you'll see students without disabilities, so that we can look at the similarities and differences and look at some patterns there. And so when we disaggregate by subgroup, particularly students with disabilities, we see higher concentrations in 2 years or 3 years or below grade level in most domains, including our identified school focus area of informational text. So this confirms a few things for us. It confirms the need to continue to prioritize the domain that we set out to prioritize. It also helps us know that there's an ELA curriculum review coming at the right time, and the visioning, learning, and resources identified through this process will help strengthen our abilities to strengthen Tier 1 experiences overall, specifically comprehension strategies and text complexity, and also the district curriculum accommodation being updated. We also need to dig deeper into this subgroup's experience, and we have started doing that work. But this is a whole school issue. It is not, it's not a special education issue. It's about the curriculum, the instruction, the inclusion, and also scheduling, staffing. There's so many pieces that go into this work. When we talk about math, 58.9% of students are currently on or above grade level. Growth is occurring and median progress trend is positive. Our goal of achieving 50% growth at the mid-year was met by 56% of students. We've seen nice placement shifts since the beginning of the year, with Tier 1 shifting from 38 to 59%, Tier 2 from 49 to 33, and Tier 3 from 13 to 9. Our focus domain of numbers and operations has also seen some improvement. I do just want to add something about students who are presenting on or above grade level. This accounts for we are trying out a new model for enrichment intervention in grade 5 with our STEM specialist, Ashley Bouchard, to grow students who are above grade level in the domains of algebra and numbers and operations. Ashley is working closely with grade level teams to do in all points of teaching and learning, and also building a resource bank of instructional videos to model all components of math instruction for teachers, in addition to going into classrooms. One barrier has been identifying times to meet with staff this year due to limited access during our PLC time. And in looking at the math domain, both students with disabilities and students without disabilities, numbers and operations, again, our identified focus continues to require attention, particularly for students with disabilities. This is year 2 of implementing Eureka Math Squared, and this data reinforces the importance of ongoing professional learning, structured collaborative planning, clear modeling and use of visual representations, and strong alignment between general and special education instruction. We will continue to work on deepening high-quality Tier 1 implementation and working on accommodating and modifying curricular resources for students when needed, which is a focus for our upcoming curriculum meeting next week. Overall, we're seeing growth, but subgroup growth remains an area for continued focus.
Next slide. Our goal here is clarity of systems and strong collaborative planning. This year, staff and curriculum meetings have been structured around student growth, data, and instructional moves. We conducted district learning walks in January and have grade leader walks. We started them today, and we are doing some next week as well. Like Dr. Slaney said, many of the professional practice goals of our teachers are aligned to strengthening Tier 1 practices. And one of the things that we talked about, we do have a lot of new teachers, and how do we keep new teachers is coaching those teachers. And Caitlin Kinsky, our humanities specialist, Ashley Bouchard, our STEM specialist, and Allie Curley, our technology integration teacher, are getting into those classrooms and modeling for those teachers so that they can be successful in the classroom.
So we'll pause for a second for any questions specific to Miller. I think you'll see a common theme tonight is how much we're really digging into the data. In recent years, we've really focused on that, and at all levels using that to drive instruction and interventions, and it's making a difference, along with the curriculum reviews and the curriculum work that we've done. Okay. Just a quick update on the...
Super quick. So this is just an update that we presented the Dyslexia Action Plan last year, and we just wanted to bring to you just some updates. A lot of the updates have already been embedded in our mid-year presentation, which is important. So that means it's not an add-on. It's part of the systems that we already have in place. We've strengthened our alignment across schools. We're ensuring consistency on how we identify and support students. Our instructional practices are becoming more unified through collaboration. This isn't just our special education team. This is all of our educators looking at the data, being able to support students and identify students earlier. And our data systems are becoming more responsive than reactive, which is really important. We're watching students in their progress and our response to their progress in real time. So the key is we're moving from more isolated practice to more cohesive district practices. The next slide, please. The action plan is really embedded in all of our instructional systems across our schools. And I think what is really important for us to think about is how we are now going to move it into our MTSS process. So thinking about, it's not a plan, it's not something that we're doing, it's not just about dyslexia, it's about reading, it's about early supports, it's about early identification. And as we build our MTSS plan, how do we take all the aspects of the dyslexia plan and the things that we've learned from the Institute and make them part of our systems and our practices in our everyday lives in our schools? And I think that we're well on our way of doing that.
How many OG certified staff do we have now versus 2-3 years ago?
Oh,
I just want specific
all your
numbers
special
off the top of your
educators?
head.
All of our special
So
educators.
all of our special educators, all of our moderate special educators
Correct.
Are now OG trained. And I would, even a couple of our severe, to be honest with you, are as well. And our reading specialists are as well. So I don't have the exact percentage, but from when we first started training, where we might have had 1 or 2 to now all, it's impressive.
So also MLL teacher?
Oh, right.
Other than Charlene
And she's
Foley.
becoming trained.
I just forwarded her PO, so she's all set for that, so, yes.
Yeah, our multilingual learners teachers are as well, so they're going to be able to utilize those practices in their interventions as well.
So we went from very few to pretty much everyone.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
I would say you have one of the highest percentages against many of the other districts that I've worked in. It's not just all of these people, because this takes 100 hours to get your certification. So this is time and effort where you really have to respond to those training, but also you have a smattering of general education teachers as well. Because we need
They all want to be trained, we just can't afford
I mean,
it.
you really have a huge saturation. You should really be grateful.
Okay, no, that's great news. That's wonderful.
And I know you just shared with us Dibbles and iReady data, which are both DESE-approved dyslexia screeners. Once you have the information, how does a district inform families that their child might be at risk for a reading difficulty?
Sure, so we just did our mailings. Everyone might have just got their home. And then, and on top of those mailings, what I'm most happy about is students that were identified in those benchmarks have already been identified in some type of intervention, either with the teacher, with a reading specialist, or with one of our tutors. And then that communication continues with both the teacher and with the reading specialist or the tutors. Yeah.
Really just, we've grown the teachers and being able to explain that data when they have conferences as well. That's a big part of you know, the teachers really owning that data and helping parents understand it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Mathapalooza.
Mid-year update.
Mathapalooza. Book fair.
He really wants us to go to the book fair.
Is there a book fair coming up?
I think so.
Okay. We can move on to central office.
Yeah, so I really, I know that was a lot. So, you know, I'm going to forego any comments that I might have for tonight so that we can keep the movement of the meeting.
Just a couple of quick announcements. Tracy joined us. We're in the middle of our Miller principal search. We had interviews last night. Was that only last night? Wow, okay. We have more interviews on Monday with the tentative scheduled dates of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Excuse me, Tuesday, Wednesday, not Thursday because of Mathapalooza, and Friday. So we'll be bringing forth, the committee will be bringing forth its recommendations on Monday, the finalist at the end of Monday. So we're working hard, a great group of people that are giving a lot of time and lively, pertinent conversations. Mathapalooza next Thursday, and also we have set up Tentatively, you will hear us present on the elementary ELA resources no later than a May meeting, school committee meeting. So the recommendation will go to Superintendent Kuska prior to that. And the RAM's curriculum review for science is in the works. And we will be presenting that prior to the end of school also. And Principal Manning, I just sent the PO off also, so we are set on that. All set.
So the snow. I have been in conversation with Frank, our town manager, as far as the spending that we've had on just snow removal and kind of what those thresholds are. We're still kind of waiting to hear kind of more and more guidance of whether we've kind of exceeded certain thresholds as among our towns and other towns, of whether there will be any kind of emergency reimbursement for some of the costs, because as a town, but even as a school system, we've kind of exceeded what we've kind of budgeted for snow removal, and crossing our fingers that we're out of the woods. But I've been watching the weather 2 weeks at a time out. That said, I am just incredibly grateful and thank the community and families. This is a difficult time, and I felt like our community kind of got behind this. I didn't hear, too many bad examples of feedback, despite kind of some very challenging areas that we have within our community. First, just a big thank you to DPW and Robert Walker. He's probably very tired of hearing me at 10 p.m., 12 p.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m. For the last 5 days. So that's kind of been my buddy for a while lately. But that said, also to kind of our maintenance crew, Matt Robshaw, just kind of in his first full year of leadership, has just done a fantastic job in kind of putting in the hours, getting a really great crew hired. That being Sean Keast, who is the maintenance tech at the middle school, Stephen O'Connor, who is the maintenance tech at the high school, Jim Shepard, who is our district-wide electrician and maintenance tech, and then Jachan Ropi as well, who serves the Miller and Placentino. Without them putting that exceptional effort in and hours in, coming in all day Sunday, all day Monday, all day Tuesday, is putting those kind of in late into the night and early in the morning. As far as those hours are very appreciated. Also to Officer Woods, who we have a Kubota that has a plow on it, but it's not a registered vehicle. It can't really drive from one campus to the other. So we got police escorts during heavy snow to kind of escort our small little Kubota from one side of the town to the other, so that we could kind of have that additional access to kind of continue our plowing in some of our targeted areas. So I'm just really appreciative of that. A little update, or a little bit kind of conversation on the high school and our kind of emergency closure that we had to have yesterday. I was very grateful that we were not looking at anything catastrophic, but that was the fear going into when we had to make the call. I think we were sitting at a point, David List, Dr. Kuska, and myself, not quite getting answers, and it didn't seem like we knew whether we would have them at a certain point, let alone a fix. So we just needed to close school immediately and get people where they needed to be. Thank you to Karen Manning in the middle school for accommodating a handful of our bus riding high schoolers. I could tell that they didn't really want to stay there for the whole day, so I think they, for the most part, found their rides home, right? All right. But they were able to pull their crisis team together, and we prepared as if we were going to receive a couple hundred kids, and we ended up getting 45, so that was great news there as well. As far as the high school, the town water department was able to come. We kind of crossed our fingers on one theory that we thought it was, that if we replaced this problem was the source at which the water was coming into the building, and that entry point. What it ended up being is that we have a the main shutoff valve, imagine like, a submarine, like big turning wheel or whatever, has been in the open position probably for, 500 years or whatever. And they got maintenance on it and last week. And when they closed it for the first time, the puck that as you're twisting and shuts off the valve to the water, that's the first time that we've ever done that. And when we opened that up, to test it, it wasn't a problem last week, but when we, 800 high schoolers and a couple hundred staff members flushed the toilet over the course of the day, it kind of knocked that old rusted block off of there, and so we just got continual flow of water into the building, which took away our pressure. So luckily, it was a quick fix. We were concerned that the water was flowing under the building and under the foundation, which would have been a much bigger problem, and we would have been trying to hustle on that MSBA feasibility study. So, all right, but that's what we got.
Can I just kind of piggyback on that? I do have to say something about the high school students yesterday. We were worried, obviously, about the timing of the situation and trying to deal with elementary dismissal as well, and really having a small window of time. The high school kids were phenomenal. I can't tell you how polite they were. I kept, was up here, we were asking them who needs a ride, who needs transportation, whatever it was, and I've never seen them so cooperative and polite. I'm sure they were happy to get out early as well, but honestly, the kids were great. I was really happy to see how they all band together and supported one another, and I did want to also just echo how lucky we are to have the maintenance staff. We were talking about that today on a meeting about the fact that they will do anything pretty much. I mean, they never complain, and I really do think that they deserve a lot as a team, how well they work together, so thank you.
Also, just remembering, thanks to Tim Holmes. I think I called him out like 12:30 or whenever that we were trying to figure that out,
right,
whatever that was. I heard music in the background. Who knows where he was, but he wasn't near a bus at that time. And he was able to wrangle 4 buses on emergency notice to kind of get them over there. Enough time to be able to escort high school students to the middle school, but then be able to arrive at the elementary school in order to run those routes as well. So that's great.
And having them high school students, obviously, it was a lot easier than our younger students that they could get rides. So yeah, it worked far better than we expected. So.
Anything else?
Dr. Cataldo?
Well, this was a good week to be 9,000 miles away, is all I can say. When I started getting messages about water, I'm like, what water? So I don't have a lot to report because I have been gone for 2 weeks, but I do have 2 important things I want to share out with everybody. One is that, we're back from vacation now. This is sort of the turning corner, and I'm looking with our SSAs at all of our programs again. When I came in, we looked at them, and now we're starting to take a deeper dive, looking at them for depth and breadth, see what else we can do, leave recommendations. Jess and I will be talking as the spring progresses, so I can give her some of my viewpoint, and she certainly will pick up and do what she feels will also be helpful for the programming. The other thing I did want to share with everybody was that I'm very, very grateful to all of the SSAs and the teaching staff, as well as the work Jess did last spring when she put together most of the documentation for the public school monitoring review for the Department for Student Services. Once every 6 years, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education pays us a visit, and this is our year. So they will be coming in. In fact, I have my orientation on the week of March 23rd, although I can't tell you what day at this time. I'm sure they will drop that in my email soon. But they'll be doing that. The next week we'll be looking at civil rights, and the next week after that, the department will look at the documents that have been submitted, and eventually they will make their way onto the grounds the week of June 1st. So I'll update the committee as each of the weeks comes closer and I get more information. All I got was a 5-line schedule thus far, and nothing more after 6 months. But we will have more, and I just want to let the committee know this is happening. A lot of times, very few districts ever get a perfect review, and for me, I find it's really helpful to have a bird's eye view from the Department of Ed to come in and really look at what we're doing to help us improve, maintain, make changes as needed in order to comply with all of the regulations, which seem to change rapidly every year. So I just wanted to let the committee know that's where we're at.
You may want to touch base with Principal List just to make sure what the NIAS dates are, because you wouldn't want both of those to be going on at the same time, probably.
We were assigned last spring, so we'll catch up.
Coordinate.
Yeah, we'll be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Subcommittees. I had the newsletter on. I think it was left over, but also
good news.
Yeah.
I really have to thank Dan McLeod, I know he's still here, for all the help with the newsletter. It was a doozy. There's a lot of incredible good news. And with that, I think it's probably higher now, Dan. I got the latest update you sent, so thank you. We had 5,000 views of the newsletter go out via the email. That's huge. And that was a week ago almost, so probably over that now. So
I think 2,500 would meet, but...
Was it? Oh, I mean, does it count if you click multiple times, Dan? How does that work?
I just said that was being 4,000 times.
Okay, we're gonna leave it at 5,000 views. Leaving Dr. Slaney's in there. But numbers aside, it was just a ton of great news and something I think we want to continue, just especially with the even 1,000 views minus Dr. Slaney. Well, I guess we're negative if we take Dan's out then too. So we will continue that. I think it's something we should do probably on a, I wouldn't say regular basis, but probably every semester, every half year as it warrants. And if there's special good news, we'll share more. So that was the update in communications. No next meeting planned yet.
How did you do office hours?
No, we did not do.
No.
It is March 20th, 1st.
21st.
Apparently, so I misread. The 21st is on both months are Saturdays. So I thought it was last Saturday. It was not. Thank you, Tracy. We will be at Rushford and Sons on March 21st at 2 p.m. And talk about anything, but primarily for the budget and any other topics that may come up. We'll have another update on March 12th when we meet.
Policy? Nothing from policy at this time?
So budget has not met, but we will probably meet maybe twice before the 12th, because I think we're going to try to have our recommendations by the 12th so that we have something to talk about and office hours, and then we have our hearing set for the 26th. Has that been posted properly? Do we?
Will be.
But you know what the
process.
The process, the rule. Okay. Because I don't, so that's why.
15 days, 7 days.
Okay. So we'll get that posted. What?
7 days notice or more?
I thought it was more than 7, but
We have faith in
poster.
Dr. Jordan. He's going to get it posted.
Yes.
And we're going to do it March 26th. It's also in the newsletter.
And if it's wrong, we'll blame him. Push it off. No,
We're not
but
gonna blame
Law,
him.
yeah. I validated with the law in one smart area.
Yeah. So we have a goal to cover, but we'll figure out some ways there. Hopefully the administration will have some recommendations for us. We'll look at other things, but certainly not insurmountable. We're waiting for March 1st too, because that is a big sort of cutoff date for a lot of decisions and things, and notifications that we need. We sent the letters of complaint to our representatives, expressing our displeasure with our Chapter 70 number in the governor's budget, and
I don't know if you saw my email. I forwarded the email from Frank.
Right. Yep.
So they're also going to be here in town if we want to
They're
talk to
here
them on
on
March
the
9th at the select board meeting. So
something at the high school too. It's a very busy Monday. Interesting, just factoid, just to prolong the meeting a little bit. Snow and ice is the one line item in town that is actually allowed to spend in deficit, and so you actually try to budget low. And anyway, but we are $200,000 over as a town on snow and ice, not including the last storm. Though usually when the governor declares a state of emergency, the state does come forward with some money. So that doesn't impact us directly, but
Good to know.
Stop you like.
Sure.
Can I just add, because I know
Yes, of
you're
course.
attending, the legislative breakfast is also on Tuesday, March 3rd in Newton. Sarah, myself, Joni, and Dr. Jordan, we're all attending. So it's also a time for us to talk about this with the liaisons there.
On our schools.
Okay, so we can move on to the Miller principal search update.
I just wanted to add a little bit actually to what Dr. Bernard had said. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday are the finalist interviews, but there will be I believe it's going to be a webinar from 6 to 7 that the community can log in and observe. And then similar to with the superintendent search, that Friday there'll be a survey going out to the community at that point as well to get some community feedback. So I know it's a tight turnaround, but just keep an eye out for that next week.
I'm sorry, which night is the webinar?
Each night of the candidacy, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. It's currently scheduled from 6 to 7.
Correct.
That people can log on.
Okay. Is there going to be a recording that we can send out?
Director McLeod, there's going to be a recording, correct, of the community forums?
Correct.
Yes.
You could send them with the surveys probably, right?
And when are the finalists?
Yes, can you please, sorry.
Monday night.
Sorry to put you on the
Monday
spot.
night, right?
You and I could talk about this, but I just want to make sure I was right.
Sorry, I missed the question.
No, that's okay. For the Miller principal search,
Correct.
you were sending out a recording of the community forum with the survey, correct?
The webinars.
The webinar recording?
Correct. The 3
Yes.
webinars, very similar to the superintendent search. If we move forward with 3 finalists, it'll look very similar with the bios, the recordings, and then the survey.
And are those emails going out to the entire school community or just the Miller families?
We are planning to send it to Miller and Placentino families.
I was going to
Yes.
request it to possibly be included.
Yeah.
Open to suggestions there, but we think that's as far as it needs to go. So
And the communication will go out tomorrow that Director McLeod and I are working on to the Miller staff.
correct. We're still trying to finalize the site visits. Everything's condensed with all the snow rescheduling, so it's tricky.
Wreaked a havoc. How many times have we revised this now? Yeah,
The school committee's either on there or it's forwarded to us. Sometimes we get emails from some schools to our school committee account. Sometimes we don't. But just
Sure, we'll make sure that you're, so
survey and
the emails to the staff, is that what you're referring to?
no, the emails to the families. I don't know.
Oh, gotcha, because it's just Placentino and Miller
Yeah.
families. I gotcha, yes.
Webinar.
We'll make sure you're on there, yes.
Is it possible to make that available to families that are not part of Placentino, and like on the webpage? Like I know some families do like to stay involved, even if they don't have children at that level.
Sure, that's why I was open to, suggestions there. We can absolutely make a webpage similar to the superintendent webpage, absolutely. Great idea. We'll just clone that page and change it. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay, MSBA update. I know Frank and Hillary, you met with Tina in working group for the MSBA. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that went?
I mean, it was a great session. Really, it was incredible to see the partnership that's being built between Select Board and School Committee. Obviously, no decisions were made. We had a very productive conversation on how we want to proceed with certain aspects of this, with clear direction tonight to discuss how we want to handle the May town meeting, which should be inclusive of definitely a presentation to inform the community of what are we asking for as part of the feasibility study, and then also the potential vote in which we'll take for the feasibility study, the capital dollars for it. We met for an hour and a half, but that was pretty much the discussion we had. So I know we're not voting on it tonight, but simply we got to get to soon as like what we're going to do for town meeting, or what's our proposal, I guess, because we do have to work with them and the broader town on that. And warrants are due next week.
I'd be strongly in favor of getting a vote on in May, and obviously we can do a presentation with that as well. But I think we have consistently, over a number of years, heard about the community's strong interest in moving forward with the high school. And so anything, if we didn't vote in May, that would just be a delay. I just don't think anyone is interested.
Can you speak a little bit louder, please? We
Yes.
can't hear you, sorry.
I am in favor of both the presentation and a vote in May.
So I'm a little confused where October is even coming from. So Sarah, Don, and I met with the select board back in December with Dr. Kuska and Dr. Jordan when we got invited into the eligibility period.
I think we all were there, Dan, actually.
Were you all there?
Yeah.
We're all there.
We were all there.
And I thought it was made pretty clear that the school committee wanted to proceed with a vote for the feasibility study funding as soon as possible, and being May. So I'm not entirely sure where this October discussion is coming from. I mean, if you think about the process, we get into the eligibility period officially June 1st. And you then have 270 days to essentially fund a feasibility study. That leaves October town meeting as the only potential town meeting if you wait that long. Or you hold a special town meeting, and we know how the town feels about the special town meetings. While I don't anticipate there being an issue with getting support for this, and the town has been very vocal about this in the past, going in May does provide a backup plan for in October if something goes wrong. And while we do need to educate the community on what exactly the feasibility study is and what it includes and what it doesn't, the amount of the asphalt, while significant, is not so out of the question, so out of the sort of size numbers that we just had 2 roofs that we funded, which are over $2 million. I mean, it's not like this is something sort of a crazy number.
The only thing to set the record straight, Dan, just what you said, just me. We had discussion, we were coming back to our individual boards, which I believe select board met last night, and we're meeting tonight to then come back as a working group and bring this feedback. So I would say the discussion was not specific on a date specifically, it was more of, these are the options, what do we feel most comfortable with? So I think, I guess does anybody have anything else to add? Because we definitely...
I watched the select board meeting last night.
I think it's fair to talk about options. I think, I do think May makes sense from a number of, even we continually get feedback about, even as recent as when we did the survey for feedback on the superintendent, we got a lot of information about schools in general, and one of the topics that came up repeatedly, and I think Ben saw this, he was involved in looking at the comments from the survey. We get a lot of questions about when's the high school coming. So I think the town has been looking for this for a number of years. We've applied for a number of years. So I think it does make sense, when you look at building costs, they're not going down. The longer we wait, they don't go down. I also think there was a statement on the MSBA website that talked about the eligibility period, and while it will start for us on June 1st. It's a 270-day period in which we have to fulfill a number of requirements. There are a number of deliverables that have to be put together by various people, many sitting here, some in the town side, some of the select board people. It did have a statement that said districts that are able to successfully complete the preliminary requirements in less than 270 days may receive invitation earlier than 270 days, as determined by the MSBA. Who knows if that would happen for us or not, but if we get stuff done early, I think it's always beneficial. So
one thing we left where we wanted to, I think all of us were trying to get clarified, it doesn't hurt us from getting ahead of things, right? And that's incredibly important to think about. So if we get ahead of it, it does show too an interest from our town that we're excited about this, and there's a lot of positive energy.
I thought I'd mentioned it at select board, but maybe I didn't. I know too, in the conversation that I had leading up to the vote, they really wanted to know that we were committed, and they really wanted to know that we were going to put it forward in May. Again, knowing that you had a follow-up if something didn't go the way you wanted, but they really wanted us to kind of certify that we were going to do it for the May town meeting prior to the June 1st, and then obviously we have a fallback. So I want to make sure that that's clear.
That's good information.
That's really good information, and I think mostly that's been the the line of thought that we've been working towards. So I think you can bring that feedback back.
Yeah, and I mean, it is, at least I'll speak from my own perspective, we have to work on this with the town, and the town's been hugely supportive, including the select board, so I think as long as we bring back the feedback and we can align it, Hillary, anything to add? I mean, it was a good session.
I agree, and the only other thing that we talked about of note was communication, so that we imagine the community has a lot of questions about the process. So, the presentation at the May meeting will be important, but we can also work on, a website and some other ways that we can answer some of those initial questions to the community.
Yeah, I meant to mention that. I also talked to Ben yesterday from the select board, and we have been talking about a presentation at town meeting, but additionally, back we were doing presentations at like the senior center. We could do that even before town meeting, partly to also hear questions that may also come up at town meeting. So it's like kind of a pre-vetting process to make sure we've got all of the information that the community is kind of looking for. So I think we can work closely with the select board to put that kind of information together too. So
Tina did offer and I think Hillary and I agreed on, and Hillary, speak up if you didn't. The town's we're gonna work with Chris Mayo to set up a town website, and then schools will link to that site, just so we're saying the same thing, right? I mean, there's no point in us creating two different versions of the same truth. So we're gonna start working on that as well, just to share information, have it out there.
But to be clear, this website is supposed to be the school building committee website.
Correct.
Which we need a school building committee to have a school building committee.
And that was also discussed,
website.
and we are fundamentally aligned to get started immediately on that. There are some that are de facto roles that are defined by the position, and then there's others that are at large, where there's a broader conversation of the at-large roles and who would take those up and how.
You need the at-large roles to get the building committee started.
Correct, but we don't need a building committee before we have a website with information. I think we agree with you on the building committee. We'll be ushering that website after they're created, but we don't have to wait for one to get a website started.
Okay. So to be clear, everyone is in agreement that we would like this to be on the May warrant and we will do a presentation, and then the vote on a number that our budget subcommittee will be.
Well, we don't have an official vote on the agenda tonight, but we will take that back with
the consensus.
Consensus, and then we'll be yes, and we got to beat this week with her because we got to get that on the warrant as soon as possible.
And to that, Frank, to your point on getting the warrant as soon as possible, the warrant language does need to be approved by the MSBA. They want at least 2 weeks lead time before any kind of place, like any kind of like local deadlines are for when the warrant needs to be. So I've been in conversation with Frank on that. So it's just more. That's probably our most looming next step, is that they in the template, they provide the template warrant language. They're kind of suggesting / requiring you to use.
We have that?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. And we just need kind of like a big thumbs up from the boards on and then Frank and I can kind of draft what that we're wanting to send, and then send that over to the MSBA for them to kind of send back to us with their approval for it.
But they need 2 weeks before we get logged down?
No, to be clear. So the warrant closes on March 9th.
Okay.
The select board may open and change the warrant at any time before it needs to be finalized, which is 7 days before town meeting.
Okay, so we just need to get it in before the 9th, if there are changes.
No. You have to have a placeholder. You can put a placeholder in.
That's what I meant.
They can open up the warrant, put a new article. The select board has a time. Basically, what can't happen is new citizens petitions, new sort of there's no right to get something onto the.
So we could put what's in the template already, and we can make changes if they're.
Yeah, I think whatever is decided to be put on the warrant. I mean, obviously, I would like, and Frank would like, and I would like to get something over to the MSBA as soon as we possibly can. But let's say that whatever is planned to be put on the March 9th warrant, I would like to be in a pretty good place that we can share that with the MSBA if we need to make an adjustment based off that language. I do think that if we're I mean, the way the template language works is just like insert name of school, insert amount, insert that is, we're pretty comfortable as far as what that approval might be.
I'm going to say we're 2 weeks, I think.
No, less.
We're
just 2 weeks.
We have more time than that.
Yeah.
We want it to be on there as soon as possible, but I'm just saying,
yes,
it's not a fire drill yet.
We don't vote again before March 12th. This is something we're voting on to make a recommendation for the language that goes on, since we are also pushing it.
Again, we could vote on different language on March 12th. It's not, I mean,
Different than what we've already submitted.
well, the language needs to be approved by the select board. No, sorry, by the MSBA. So in some
I think
ways
we should get their feedback. Yeah, no, actually,
I mean,
if
we could have a quick meeting if we need to.
Okay.
We may want to consider having a quick meeting after we get their feedback and voting on something and recommending it.
But I'm not sure we'll have it.
But the question is, do we want to put anything in that's different than their template? Because if we submit their template to them, then I
Ultimately,
likely
we're not getting feedback from the MSBA. They are approving it. So like once the final, they're kind of the final say on what the warrant
But
is.
feedback's important, because if they don't approve it, do they give feedback on?
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, it's dead end. I do think for community, and I've heard a few voices, not many, but a few, what is a feasibility study? I know we've said it a few times. I think we're ingrained in it, but I think it's important to have the community understand what the amount we're looking for is for as it relates to the building.
That we're running through budget sub and really relying on Dr. Jordan and all the work that he's been doing.
Yes.
With Mr. Geist and the other town people. So, but that will be part of it.
Yep. Okay. So we may need a meeting shortly. I guess, David, can you share that out with us?
Yeah, and I've shared Sarah, I believe, has a copy of the warrant language too, and so does Frank, and I think Ben has a copy of it as well.
When does the select board meet again? March 9th, March 9th.
And we're planning to meet with Tina again next week. We're going to find the time and date.
Okay.
Yeah, we said after we all met with our board, so. Okay. We'll have more news after next meeting.
Okay. I'm going to, so we have a couple of things, but I think I'm going to bump up the discussion on the 25 calendar, or this current year calendar. 25, 26, we're in 26, sorry. Because obviously this is a tough week. We've had a lot of snow, and so our current calendar, we have we're concerned about the very late last day of school at this point.
If we, just so I understand, if we did nothing to any other days, the last day of school right now would be June 26th. Okay. And obviously there's snow potentially next week. Doesn't seem, well, some say it's a lot, some say it's none. So it'll be none, a lot, nothing.
So I know that we've gotten lots of emails. There have been lots of conversations. I'm not sure exactly how to start this conversation other than
Can we take, one of the suggestions was to take another look at the March PD date and see if we could come up with something creative surrounding that, whether that would be possible to turn the full PD day into a half PD day and get a half day of school in on that day.
So I would prefer to instead just swap it and have the PD day on April 3rd, Good Friday, so that we have a full day of learning for the students. We have to look at half PD days and that kind of stuff, going forward. But for right now, rather than sort of changing that, I'd like to, my, thought is keep a full day of learning and on the 10th for students. When I move to a full day of classes on the 10th for students, and move that PD to Good Friday.
I'll have an unpopular probably comment here, but if there could, and it could happen at any point, but if there's other looming days, do we want to make a decision now to cover what has already been done, or wait a little bit longer, understanding we're not going beyond the 26th?
Can we just take a break? And I wonder if I think probably some of the people in this room have maybe have some ideas that we could listen to first, and then kind of
So you have
respond to those.
You have a couple things to consider, the 180 days for students and the 185 for staff, that's contractual as well. One of the ways could be what Dan suggested is that we could, obviously we'd have to discuss it with the union, but you could foreseeably do PD on Good Friday. I would suggest if you're doing it that day, you would do a half day, because that other people are usually around noontime. I'm hearing sometimes earlier in this, a lot of our Catholic staff might be attending Good Friday things that typically start around noon, but I'm hearing even earlier in Holliston. So I think foreseeably we could manage a half day. We would lose a half day of PD, but it would allow us to have the full day for students on the March 10th. And I think there's a willingness from the leadership team to make that work, and still meet all of the needs of staff and PD that was planned, but cut it down to a half day for that reason, and get the day in for the students, which would get you back to the 25th, with the understanding that we don't know if there's going to be in the future. I do think the weather for next week is looking okay, but we don't know, right? The other thought is having a half day on Eid and Good Friday. You know, those are the things to consider. You could leave the PD day alone and potentially do half days for students and staff on Eid and Good Friday. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out things that are hypothetical.
If it was a half day on Good Friday, though, it would still be, the students would be out, but would the staff be hitting the 185 days, or they'd be at 184.5 now? Or we're just going to be okay with that?
Either way, if we do a half day for staff, it's technically a full day for staff, whichever way we do it. You know what I mean? Like, contractually, it's 185 full days, but I don't think we're going to split hairs on that. I think everybody would make that work. Because even the day before Thanksgiving, for example, that's technically a full day for staff. We don't sit there and make sure that they're staying a full day, because it's past, so I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. Everybody would be satisfied.
Is one day enough to get back?
I think it's well. I think if you're sitting at the 26th day and there's a one snow day, you're rolling into June 30th or June 29th, and then you really just have the 29th and 30th. You have one more day to give, and if those days come too late into what would be the winter season, the very end of March, we don't have many places to kind of carve out. So we have some opportunities of some dates that are immediately in front of us. I don't want us to be in a spot at the very beginning of April where we're kicking ourselves on some days that were available to us in March.
Because the other holidays are federal holidays after that, so you can't do anything with those.
Except for April vacation. And we have done that before. After March 13th of 2020, sometime at the very end of March, I think we took away April vacation, not Patriots Day, but if...
The thought on March 10th is that's a middle of the week day, so it's like it's a Tuesday, versus I think when we're looking at staff outages and planned vacations, they're usually flanking like a Friday, Monday, and so like how we think about that, I think there's greater flexibility. And then with the Good Friday or Eid, if we're just doing staff, we're not as impacted by a school day. Could say we have extreme staff and student outages, there might be a scenario where we can't open the building due to the number of absences. If it were a PD day, regardless of who calls in sick or whatever that would be, we could still count the full day.
Well, and the other piece is if it's a half-day PD for our staff, it would only be our education staff. It wouldn't be our paraprofessional staff, because that's not one of the days. They've already had their PD. So it's because that's another issue. It's like March 10th right now. our paraprofessionals are not expected to work that day because it's full PD day. So we also would have to work that out and make sure we have enough paraprofessionals to come in on March 10th.
Do you think we could do that? We don't have a lot of time between.
I think we'd want to have that conversation sooner than later.
Right.
Yeah, I think as a logical next step here is there's some type of vote that comes out of the school committee that at least allows Dr. Custer to have that conversation with
The HFT to be able to see where that lies.
Yeah, and Dr. Jordan and I could do that together.
Do any of you all have any additional thoughts on this? Or is what we're saying, what we're saying make sense?
There's little options.
Have we missed something major?
I think we talked about this option, but we want to keep it as a 24th, knowing we're at the 26th right now. Do you look at putting the PD day as a half day for Good Friday or Eid? So you get a half day with students extra, you save the PD day, they get 2 days back, and you're going out the 24th.
Wait, what?
You get 1 day back.
How do you get 2 days?
No, you would get the PD day back and a half day for Eid or Good Friday.
So you want kids would go to school on
Eid or Good Friday for a half day. PD day for the rest of the day.
He wants the students to be part of that day, too.
So then you give
I'm more trying to protect from going into the 29th right now rather than trying to sort
That's
of
fair.
claw
Okay.
back during
All right.
the week.
There's a lot of feedback they didn't
I don't really want to mess with the holidays right now because I think that we need a bigger conversation before we start getting there. I think we need to take a look at all of this, but it needs to be done in a thoughtful sort of.
So the key thing right now is if we're touching March 10th, because that's going to be before our next meeting, and that's like in next
Correct. And then so if next week turns into another one where 4 days out they said nothing, and then we get 19 inches, then we meet on the 12th and we can have meaning 2 or 3 days of no school. Then we can meet on the 12th and try to sort of start talking about that. But yeah, then you're looking at having to either eliminate those holidays or start looking at April vacation, and none of that will be popular.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
that would be my recommendation as well, right? Just to focus on the 10th, and because we will have other successful school committee meetings if we need to approach those things there. I just think we have the immediacy of the March 10th date in front of us. And again, my caution of, at the moment, I think it still might be something we have to if we end up getting the weather, of trying to vote on students coming on Good Friday or Eid right now is that kind of concretizes it right now, and we may not need it. And the other portion is still like the risk that not enough staff for the students to meet those needs, or we're hitting the requirements that we need to, and I just don't even want to get to that risk at this point.
So one thing, being just 2 weeks away from this, that I'm aware of is if the paras were not scheduled to work, that we need a sufficient number of paras to be able to pull this off. Do you think it's more likely that we could have a sufficient number of paras if it's a half day and not a full day? Because I imagine having a day off, they may have scheduled appointments or they may have things that could conflict. I could see doing a half day of school making it more likely that we could get a sufficient number of pairs, unless you disagree.
I don't know that. I feel like I don't know that it would make a difference, to be honest with you.
I don't think we know the answer to that yet. I think what we would. I think I'm in agreement with Susan. I don't know if it would make a difference, or I don't know if we know the answer yet. I imagine the HFD is accommodated and want to make as much of this happen as much, knowing how close those are to the deadlines. But the reality is we're going to have some folks with some looming appointments that are scheduled on those days. I think if we can work with the HFT to kind of just identify a process that makes sense and is as supportive as we can to the pairs that do have needs, and at the same time kind of meets the needs of the district, I think that's a conversation I think we can have.
I do think this illustrates, though, why it's so important not to have a last day of school initially in the 20s, just because you get a bad winter. Yeah. I mean, we should not be having to have this sort of concern with just 4 snow days, right? We build in kind of 5. We have had these kind of years before. So.
Another question. I know when we extended the schedule last year, we bought like 15 minutes per school, right? 10 to 15 minutes. Do those minutes add up enough that for the remainder of the year we could take away a day?
No,
I think
but
the minutes
still
matter.
days.
Yeah.
They don't count,
It's not the
you
time.
only get credit for the days that you attend.
Okay,
you know
so
what I mean?
like
it
the
doesn't-
DESI website says like
No.
990, they don't
Time on
actually-
learning is separate from
days.
days.
180 days is the law, not like
Not
the
the
minutes that add up to
990 hours.
180.
Yeah, because I think,
Yeah,
theoretically,
Well, you need
we're
both.
doing more minutes now than we, right, so I know what
Right,
you're saying.
okay.
but
Yeah, you need the minutes and the days. You need both.
The minutes, add up to equivalent for most students other than class Latino, about 7 days of the official.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't
for a
sure
year.
that we had any wiggle room with that.
But it doesn't change the number
Interesting,
of
I
days
didn't
you
know
need to go.
that it was both.
Yeah, I didn't either, because when I was looking at a lot of the school calendars, there are definitely some schools in the district that are at like 174 days on learning, because they have a lot of half days. I'm like, how are they getting away with that?
Yeah, a half day still counts as a day out of one, you know what I mean? And that's where it's like,
Yeah.
DESI needs to do a better job, I think, of trying to have equity.
Why we like 2-hour delays and half days for snow, and because they
One
don't
thought I
get
had
back their 180.
I'm sorry. One thought I had for the future, and I don't know if anyone's interested in doing this, is writing another letter to our. They're going to start to kill us, but maybe our administrators can weigh in on the thought about this. Is allowing superintendents to call 2 to 3 remote learning days instead of snow days, because what we found during COVID is we can teach remote. It is definitely not as effective as in person, but I also think it's much more effective than June 26th.
So right now, like DESI would not approve remote days as days.
No, understood. So we would.
I see,
I want to advocate to allow.
The other issue that has come up is pivoting that quickly and making sure everybody has computers is always an issue, but also what happens sometimes if we're having inclement weather, that's when a lot of the internet's good, you know what I mean? So in theory, yes, but the only way you could really do it is if obviously DESI allowed that day to count, and I think it would have to be something that could be done without a computer in the event of, they'd have.
Well, and it would have to be something that there would be plans for it in place, right? And it would be up to the superintendent's discretion, whether it's a snow day or a remote learning day. If 50% of the power in the town is out, obviously that couldn't really be a remote learning day. I just think to have that flexibility to allow for it
would be nice, yeah.
Would be at least I've seen some of the private schools have these, remote learning days, and it's different. I get it, but we do have one-to-one
We have a new
devices.
commissioner, so in the past, they were not willing to entertain that. That's certainly something that could be brought up with the new commissioner. I have no idea what he would say in that situation. He seems very much of a rule follower as far as those things go. But.
Can you tell us about the impact to the PD? What was planned for the March 10th?
Yeah, so one of the things that was planned was Peg Dawson was going to be doing half a day PD with our middle school, because we had a different schedule for them. And then also the high school had planned, remind me,
partners.
We had outside groups bringing in.
Right.
So we would have to look into whether that can be rescheduled or not. I don't know, and hopefully there will be.
We have elementary school ELA curriculum review. Dr. Slaney, do you want to speak to that?
That's a little tricky, just because.
We have a group of, we're in pilot season right now, so we have PD that day for one of the
curricular resources
curriculums that we're choosing, but we'll figure it out.
And then also there's an MLL curriculum review, which might have to be rescheduled. I'm not quite sure, because that's district-wide, so I don't know if they'd be able to get coverage or not. So I'll have to talk to the principals about that.
The one thing I would say with the half-day PD day on Good Friday, and while I understand and appreciate the sort of the incentive there, is there's already would be a religious exemption anyway. So to have it as a full PD day, allowing staff who are observing to observe in the way they, would allow at least for more time to.
We could certainly have that conversation.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm concerned about, principals, do you guys have any reservations about potential presenters wanting to take that day off?
We don't know. We have no idea.
Yeah, okay.
We haven't even, they were scheduled for the 10th. We have no idea if they're
Right,
scheduled or not. We might have to pivot on some of the.
Right.
It would certainly give us feedback on attendance for at least one of the religious holidays, right?
Right.
Although I question how, the first time you try anything, the attendance is going to be tough. So I think it would be hard to really get a good judgment from just doing it once. But, yeah.
Tough year.
So where are we landing? Are we,
I think are we just sticking with
looking at the 10th for this meeting, and then considering, okay. And the 10th, we're thinking of moving to the 3rd, or?
And I think leaving that at least a half day or full day for the 3rd for PD, I'd be fine leaving that in the administration's discretion as far as.
So I think there's two options, right? Either March 10th becomes a half PD day and a half curriculum day, right? Half day for students. Or March 10th becomes a full day for students and we move PD to Friday, April 3rd, Good Friday, and make it a half PD day, right? Those are our two options.
What about childcare? I mean, right now, obviously, people would have had to plan a full day of childcare, but if you switch it to only a half day, does that make it tougher? Is it easier, or does that change?
Well, it depends on your situation, but it's easier to cut things down than go find it.
Certainly. But we're not asking anyone to go, none of the solutions that we're coming up with are asking people to go find.
But from a PD presentation perspective, you keep it the same day but make it a half day. They're already there all day right now. So you're truncating that. You're not disrupting that as much. Students are expected to be in school or not expect. No, they're off.
They're not going to be.
Yeah, so they have care, but they only need it for half the day after 11 a.m. So it's not ideal for either side, but it's, I think, less disruptive.
It would be helpful for parents to know that they have a full day for their students, and that's less impactful than having to find childcare the other way around.
Yeah. That's also keeps the time on learning.
Yeah, especially when the students are more engaged than they would be in June.
Right. So it gets a half day.
And then you're not touching a holiday like.
No, we're not touching a holiday right now for
No,
students.
for students.
Not for students.
Regardless, unless something massive changes.
So does it make sense to try for a full day on the 10th and a half PD day on April 3rd?
I'd say
Assuming
half or
it all.
full. I'd say a half or a full, and we'll
A
leave
PD
that.
day on the 3rd, and we can let.
Then the discretion of the
Yeah.
administrator. Or has-
And the 10th will be subject to making sure the pairs.
We would start that conversation right away.
Yeah.
Feedback from administration is. Could we? I mean, is there the option of doing it on the 3rd or on what's the other Friday that's off? Like, what? Is there a reason why we're locking it into the 3rd?
You're saying the 20th?
The 20th, right? Yeah. So like either or, whatever's.
I think I know more about Good Friday than I do about Eid, and I know that Good Friday usually would start noontime on, which would allow people to get out. Eid, I think, runs
But we did
all day.
hear last night at the interviews that the local church starts Good Friday celebration at 11.
Which
I don't know if that's true or not.
And we'd have to consider that.
Last night when you and I were talking.
Right, although I don't know how many of our staff are in town. I mean, our families
Correct,
would
I
still
don't
have
know.
it regardless, so I don't.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
There's no great solution here, right?
Yeah.
I think we're just trying to figure out what's the best way to keep students in and getting their instruction, but also support staff with a last-minute pivot.
I think from our perspective, though, it should like 20th or the 3rd, because the presenters have to come too.
Right, so the 3rd gives you a little bit more time, so hopefully.
Fair, yeah. I mean,
Also, Eid is the most recent holiday that we added. For not to.
Fair, yeah.
That was just my thing.
I think the 10th should be a full day of instruction, not a half day. I know that was
I
floated
think
around.
we could shoot for
Well,
a
if we're
full
not
day.
doing PD day,
Unless there were
yeah.
unless there ends
Full
up
day.
being an issue with pairs or something like that, but.
Just for parents.
But even, I mean, if there are issues, if it's less than 2 weeks away at this point, I feel like we kind of need to make a decision so that people can just adjust and not leave it too up in the air.
Please.
Yeah.
We'll also, we don't meet again, and we prefer not to do this on an ad hoc basis, but I agree with you that the 10th should be a full day.
Okay. So can we do it with the contingency that if we have insufficient pairs for a full day, but we're going to have sufficient pairs for a half day, that we then,
We can do our best to try it, just, I don't know.
that way we don't
quickly
have to.
gather that data to ensure one way or the other, I mean, because last minute things happen too, so we might think we have a certain amount and then find out, we will do our best.
It's all contingent on having covered the staffing that we need, obviously. So.
But it's already, the other problem is if we made it a half day, the paraprofessionals are already paid for a full day, so then that would actually, we'd have to deduct that from them because we annualize their salary, so I don't want to do that to them either. We'd want them to get their hours and,
Right.
So full day is better than 50%
Yes,
effort.
in this case, yes.
If they show up.
So then I would make a motion to shift March 10th to a full day of regular school and move the PD day to Friday the 3rd. Yeah.
Second.
All in favor? That passes.
So can you clarify to a half day or a full day? Can you just clarify on the 3rd?
I didn't specify.
Oh, okay.
Just PD on the 3rd.
Okay.
PD on the 3rd.
And this would make the 25th a potential last day of school, is that right?
Potential.
Right.
We might be back here.
Well, at this point, should we vote that so we can have an updated calendar up?
Yes.
Because I feel like it's a little challenging for families too
Yes.
right now, where you pull this up and you
Yes.
Have to adjust in your head.
Yeah. Yep. You can always vote it again.
Okay, so I'll do this. Why not? To adjust the last day of school to June 25th.
Second? All in favor? That passes.
Goodness.
Okay.
Is that all that's pending?
Yes.
Right?
They could
Yes.
re-vote to the 26th if they
Re-vote
had
it
to.
if we had
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Okay.
But that
Make
way,
sure Tim Holmes has buses for us too.
Oh, good.
Okay, you already confirmed that?
Putting it up.
Definitely. Yeah, I did.
We got to get kids to school.
No, I'm just putting it up.
Right?
On the 10th?
Bus drivers have to be available.
Because the 10th is supposed to be off.
The 10th and the 25th, yeah.
Well, no, the 20th, I mean, that's happening now.
That'd be fine.
He's got to do 25th.
Here's the thing. It is going to be a little bit messy, but it is much better than people who are on the South Shore and they're looking at eliminating April vacation. It's going to be very messy for a lot of districts down there. So we're just
Yes, I can attest to that. My daughter is one of those teachers that had the full week off, and my grandson and her have been home for 2 weeks together. So nice, but they will not be happy.
So
in,
we ask for everyone's
When they lose
patience
April vacation.
and just sort of
No good answer.
trying
We're all
to.
doing the best.
But having school on the 29th.
That's. Of course, we have 2 calendar discussions.
I know. So do we want to take a break?
Yes,
let's take a break. Okay.
This year.
Well, no, we're talking calendars.
Okay, so we're going to move on to, we just have the Director of Teaching and Learning job description with a vote. I did talk to Chemo, he weighed in on this, so we just need to approve the job description.
Are we
And then
2,700 students?
we can hopefully post it tomorrow. And David Jordan is running the search.
Yes, Dr. Jordan will be the facilitator of the search. The one thing is that I did want to consider is I know because it's a title change and potential salary change, a different role slightly, Dr. Jordan and I would like to be able to look at this description much more closely because there are some things that are already not part of the current role. So if you could give us an opportunity tomorrow, the two of us could look and make some adjustments and then potentially share it back to you, Sarah, if the committee would allow us to do so to get final input.
That's fine.
But I think there's...
I did leave this, just because Chemo had looked at that.
Okay.
So I wanted to make sure.
One thing I noticed right away that I think we could probably delete is attends all school committee. School
Yes, that's
housing
one
and school
thing.
building
Yes.
committee.
That was one thing I noticed. And also the curriculum council, it doesn't exist in the same way, but they have curriculum meetings with the various curriculum. So,
But still change it to attend school committee, school housing, school building committees as necessary or as requested, as.
Or as wanted.
as requested.
No, more so like if the superintendent asks.
I took out policy.
Yeah.
As As requested?
As requested.
Yeah, I mean, as Dr. Cuska and I talked about, we're just looking at things that don't make sense to be in there, just having the opportunity to kind of make those tweaks, but still with the intention, with Sarah's approval of the changes that we've made, that we can post tomorrow.
So we would almost be voting it subject to the review of Dr. Cuska and Dr. Jordan and
Sarah.
And then
So
coordinating with Sarah.
I'd like to do that, and then I think we should vote on the salary range specifically, separately.
Okay. So
Directors and assistant superintendents are similar salary bands. I think that was said previously, or?
It depends on the position and the person, and there's overlap, but
There's a lot of
you have
overlap,
directors
though,
who are paid more than assistant superintendents, but generally speaking, assistant superintendents are paid more than directors.
I feel like there's a lot of overlap, though, in this band versus where assistant superintendent is.
Depends on who the applicant is.
Experience.
I think there's a pretty good range there.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's a good range.
I'm not a fan of tight ranges. In fact, this is tighter than I'd like it to be, but it is within sort of where it seems
I
like
agree. It's not a tight band.
public education.
Probably tighter than you'd like it, but it's not that tight.
I mean, the bands in the corporate world are like 50%.
I know.
Yeah.
Sit back. Okay.
If you want the space to be able to hire somebody who is limited to no experience, but has really demonstrated this is somebody we want to take a risk on. But then you want to have the opportunity, if just somebody with a ton of experience and you're in need, you have the flexibility to be able to make that decision.
So within that, I think I'm with Dan in, should we widen the range? Because I have, especially if we're considering somebody who has less experience. I've seen directors of teaching and learning or directors of STEM or humanities at a lower salary than our minimum.
Lower about 10 or 15.
Yeah, I agree. Because we don't want to get locked in if we do find someone who...
The one thing I'll say is, I mean, I personally think that is good. I have been looking at a lot of different sort of postings that I've seen out there. 35,000 range is not something I've seen. Most of them are 10 to 20,000.
Could we be different?
I mean, you know me, I love to, break the mold, but...
I think I personally am good at 175, like not raising that, but what's the harm in making it a little wider on the lower end side to open the net?
I don't think you're opening the net going down. You're potentially...
It's opening the net for us, like to Dr. Jordan's point, like if we find someone who doesn't have direct experience, but we have promise, like 150 is not small.
I think if you go down probably to 140, you risk scaring some qualified applicants away, thinking that they would get the job and then get lowball. Would be my guess. And given sort of where our other similar titled people are with similar sort of responsibilities, I'm okay with this range.
How do you feel about the range, Sarah?
I chemo saw the range, so I'm okay with it as because he was kind of talking about relative to
other positions. Okay,
so
I mean, that makes me comfortable.
That was kind of where this came from. So positions here.
So I'll make a motion to set the salary range for the Director of Teaching and Learning at $150,000 to $175,000.
Second.
All in favor? That passes.
I'll make a motion to approve the job description with modifications by the administrative team as they deem non-largely substantive, as they deem necessary.
And consult with Sarah.
And consult with Sarah, yes. So all that in the motion, and change to are we 2,700 students?
Oh, how many students?
Yeah, we'll give it tomorrow.
Okay.
We didn't.
Okay. I'm not shrinking that fast.
Second the motion? Finish the motion?
I think so.
Okay, all in favor?
At least I'm sorry.
Nice. Okay. Let's see. I think we're down to the last item.
So will this position be posted in the next few days?
Maybe tomorrow?
We're going to try to get it tomorrow,
If we can.
but we'll try to get it with Sarah. We're not going to make a huge change, but we need to try to make it work for what we, because something should come off if it's not the assistant superintendent as well.
Yeah, I think,
No, you're right.
I think the timing will roll as soon as we can get it posted. I mean, ideally, you kind of want to have minimally a recommendation or a person feeling that they have the job before spring break.
Yeah, so goal tomorrow, but no later than Monday probably if we can.
Okay, that sounds reasonable in that. And there is a time frame, a timeline in the folder too. I don't know if anyone, do we want to name a school committee member to be on that?
We probably should, because, so where it says week of March 2nd, is that meaning an email's going to go out to look for people to join the committee?
Yeah.
And then the committee will be formed, I believe by March.
Definitely before March 23rd.
Yes. But you're going to send something out as early as next week, asking for people to submit interest. Okay. And in terms of the week of March 23rd, meeting with the interview committee, reviewing the candidates, are we thinking that's going to be in the evening? Do we have?
I would, considering the process we've followed with our other openings we've had, it seems like, and Joni to chime in, it's been evenings have been what's worked, or late afternoons.
Yes.
Okay.
Is anyone interested in being on the search committee? Hillary, yay.
Hillary.
Oh, excellent.
I'm interested as well, but we'll defer to you. So if you're only doing it because no one else volunteered, I will.
She raised her hand quickly.
I know.
She was right.
There's commitment there.
I am interested, but I also was on the other stuff, so
So
I'm
as
happy
was I
to.
on superintendent. So if you're truly wanted, but don't feel like you have to take it on. Okay.
Thank you.
And if something happens, we can always switch up.
We could do you as a backup.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint Hillary as the school committee member with Tom as a backup to the Director of Teaching and Learning search.
So moved.
All in favor? Sounds great. Okay.
Do we approve who's going to be on the committee? How does that work?
Oh, yeah. Were there any concerns or questions about?
I don't.
It's just a point of
This
information.
isn't our search.
Right.
Right.
So I
just
think
as a point of
we appoint our
information.
member and the rest is done by the
Okay.
superintendent.
Okay. Anything else then on this? Great. Okay. So the last thing, I think, is going back to the 26-27 school calendar. Tracy had some more suggestions. There's a shortcut there for the version that has proposed changes. It says it's not linked to the agenda. It's in the folder. It says HPS school calendar 26-27 proposed changes.
So I think the one that we talked the most about is probably alternative 3, with doing the first and second day as full day PDs for the staff, and then trying to do with a full day for students on their first day. I honestly hate that start, but I was looking forward, and this is, for the next 5-6 years, this is not an issue. So even though starting 2 weeks before Labor Day and having less than 2 months, because if we end on the 25th and we're starting on the 24th, that seems like a very, very short summer for everybody. But it is a smaller period of time, and I like alternative 1, those of you looking at it, that looks a little bit more at the religious holidays as PD days. So I do like that we've started that conversation with this year's calendar, because I think that will open up a little bit more for us. There's been a lot of feedback from the community on relooking at that. So I don't know. I mean, alternative 3 gets us out earlier, starting with those 2 full PD to start, and then even playing around with some half-day PDs a little bit more, particularly toward the end of the year, I think gives a lot more time on learning for our students, gets those 180 days in better.
So just, the first day for students this year was August 26th. I understand the weird Labor Day thing, but it's not like we're starting, if we started on the 26th of August, it's not like we would be starting earlier than we did this year.
Correct. But still 2 weeks before.
I recognize that we have touched, or we're touching a PD on a holiday for this year, but I think that to me, that's more of an emergency type of situation to ensure we don't have school on the 29th. And I talked about it for a little while, and I know we've been really busy, but I really do think we need to sort of do some more work and study through some sort of committee. And I know we've done a lot of surveys, but I haven't seen a real holistic survey. We surveyed the community a while ago, or last 2 years ago, I think, about February break, and breaking that up, and people hated, well, I wouldn't say hated, but 65% or so of people did not like that idea. But we didn't really look at it in a holistic manner, having people weigh certain
various
how
options,
late they get out versus how many holiday, versus religious holidays versus getting rid of or shortening February break. We didn't sort of try to get people to sort of make a choice where they lie. And I think there's a lot of work that we can do, especially if we're getting out on the 15th for next year, at least as an original date. And that's what we sort of had said too, that this was kind of a good year to do it because we don't have that late start date. I really don't want to get into, and I recognize that this is only, I think, your alternative 2, but I really don't want to get into a 22nd end date, because again, if we had 4 snow days and we were getting out on the 22nd, we would be in the 28th, 29th, that last week of June next year. And then we'd be scrambling again.
I also want to note that the proposals in each one, part of this is because when holidays fall in March next year, we have 3 March weeks of 4 days, which would be hard for our administrators and students maybe as well, in planning for MCAS and some of the other academic activities that go on in March.
I mean, if we're looking at that March, I know keeping the religious holidays with that full PD day that's currently scheduled for the 2nd. If we're looking at half day, do the January PD a half day, the March PD a half day, and then we have 2 in August as full, 1. There was currently 1 scheduled for the Veterans Day, November 3rd, Election Day. But then that puts a lot of stress on the month of November, whereas October, if we moved it up a week, then we have October with a break, because that day doesn't have to be off.
The Tuesdays off is, I think, a lot of, not off, but it's a PD day, because I think a lot of surrounding districts do that, and because voting is here up here at high school, and those tend to tend to be, well, this is going to be a congressional election year, so it will be the second most, second busiest election there is.
Yeah, keeping that a full day, so that would be 3 full day, 2 half day.
March 2nd, I do see that as, I hadn't noticed that before, but yeah, March is a doozy.
So that
But
would
I don't know what to
be
do about
switch to a
that.
half day.
Because you move it to early February, you're getting kind of close to the one on the 15th. You move it into April, it doesn't really do you any good because you're still kind of just disrupting 3 or 4 different weeks.
But I like that, moving one of the PD days to before school starts, so there's one fewer, just shortened week in September,
Yep.
and students are getting out a little one day earlier.
I would do one more push for the November date, just because if you don't have that, you've eliminated Holliston providing PD for all the UA teachers across the state, for our teachers and other districts.
On the 3rd instead of the...
On election day, yeah.
I don't think we're looking at moving the election day.
Okay. It wasn't on there, I'm sorry. It's not on the calendar, so that's why I'm confused.
So is it just missing it though? Is that going to push the dates out?
Yeah, it's fine. I just switched it from the 29th to the 3rd.
Yeah.
Oh,
gotcha.
The current proposal has it out the 15th. If you move the PD from the 11th of September to the 25th of August, that should not change anything about the last day of school, which should still be the 15th.
Yeah, I just wanted to check that though, because I was getting the 16th when I was counting out days, so I don't know.
I did get the 16th.
Yeah, the first time
it
was 16th, but then it was 15th, so I don't know.
So I think I had talked to you that the teacher's contract is 185 and the student contract is, the student DESI expectation is 180. But when we added half days and went from 3 full day and 1 colloquium day, that was 4, we still have to do 185, so the compromise was that the agreement was that the students would have 181 days so that they wouldn't be missing that time on learning. So you still have to hit, if you do half days, you still have to hit 185 for staff and 181 for students in that model.
No, we're looking at just sort of the original schedule with the full PDs, no half days.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Let's just recount. We don't have to vote on the 15th or 16th. Either one is at least give some buffer before the Juneteenth holiday. That being said, I think that we probably need to, I think if people are sort of leaning towards moving the 11th to the 25th, we probably should have some more conversations with the HFT before we do move anything.
We do need to follow up with them, and we're starting that process, but we don't have a time at this point.
But hopefully by next meeting, I think we should be.
Yes. So I have one other question about athletics, which I know is only a small portion of our students. Do we have any flexibility with helping our sports teams? I mean, we have 11 teams in 4 different sports fighting for one field. Do we have any ability to help them get other space to hold tryouts?
The earlier start, is that going to impact the start of sports?
So typically, girls soccer and boys soccer are given space at Marshall to hold tryouts there. So
But that's during the day. If we're now making them all have tryouts at night because they're starting school on Wednesday, and a lot of our coaches are on Monday.
For soccer this year, it was just the week, it was like.
1 day difference.
It was the week of the 17th.
Right, they can't start.
Yeah, so that it's going to be around the same time, so it's all...
No, but if we have all these teams and everyone can only start on Monday, Tuesday, if their coaches aren't working in the district, they could potentially have tryouts then. But then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, our students are all in school, so everyone's going to want the field starting at 3 o'clock.
Practices can start on the 24th, but tryouts happen before that.
I think they're limited to 2 weeks before, from what my conversation.
This year, the teachers start on the 25th, so it's 1 day.
So they're limited before.
Yeah, 2 weeks before Labor Day.
No,
Force.
for practices, but not for the whole tryout situation. Tryouts
David, what
happen
about,
before-
can't they run captain's practices?
That's. I mean, we know nothing about them.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay.
I don't know what those are, Jenny.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Don't know. I think they do boats, something to do with boats. So the MIA tells us when they can start. I have to ask Matt what it is this year. It can shift based on the calendar and the school year starting, because schools start at different times. I know that Matt has used other fields in the past when necessary to do certain tryouts. But the majority of our teams make it work. They just stack they stack up and as they need to and use the fields. Because I just want to so what is thinking about the start date, what's the concern?
So if everyone, MIA, I'm pretty sure said that coaches can't be there until the 24th with their kids. So usually a lot of our teams Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are still having tryouts. Right. But now instead of being able to, I know some of the tryouts start at 7 a.m. Now our tryouts for all of our teams can't start until the earliest 3
So I
10.
believe. Okay, I see what you're saying. Sorry. So I believe what you can do in those situations, again, because calendars are all different. I believe is you get a waiver from the MIAA based on when we have availability and time. That's how most things work. I'd have to ask Matt what that is, but usually what the MIAA does in those situations is you apply for a waiver, and you're basically saying it's not an unfair advantage. Like we're acknowledging it's not an unfair advantage. It has to do with our access to fields and calendars and that. So I'd ask Matt on that piece. But either way, the kids have the kids are practicing. They're doing their whatever they're doing, and then they would start and do. But most of the tryouts are right before, right? Those early days, yeah. That week.
And I think it's on the MAAA that they may begin on the second Monday preceding Labor Day for the fall 2026. It's Monday, August 24th, so they'd have Monday and Tuesday as full days. And then there's certain exceptions for some sports, like football and also golf that are ongoing.
We also would be like our calendar doesn't change based on our school day starting, like the start of the sports season. So you would still have the days, not the mornings, but you still have the afternoons.
Right, well, that's what I'm just saying. Field space, we have one. Yeah. So do we have the ability to help them rent other spaces?
We usually, yeah. I mean, we have other spaces that we use when we need to, but with a lot of those sports, like even if we're talking about like girls soccer or boys soccer, like the tryouts 90% of the time, it's like you have a whole massive group of them, and they can make it happen pretty quickly, and they do a good job, and we haven't run into it, but it's something that I can talk with Matt about to see. But I do know we have used other fields in the past when necessary.
Yeah, I think we asked.
Soccer uses Marshall, but.
Yeah. But I'll check in with that. I'll see him tomorrow, so I'll check in with him and be driving to Burlington for boys basketball during rush hour should be great.
You have the proposals, right?
What?
You have the proposal. Should make sure you're Mr. Holliston, so we can review those with Matt.
Gladly on the drive over, we can. I'll talk to him about that and the dates, and I'll let you know what he says about those.
August 24th is the MIA official start date for tryouts. On that, it's usually we can get an exemption.
I mean, but we also use other fields, so there's other space that we've used before. One or the other. Yeah, one or the other, and then they're pretty efficient with their tryouts too. Like it's. Because I mean, we do it like in the spring. We're talking about like all the lacrosse, and then the track is going on at the same time. So like, I mean, they're able to pull it off, with baseball and softball and all of.
Yeah, those are.
No, I get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying. So I'll ask Matt.
In high school, ripped up all the fields.
There you go. But Tracy, I'll ask Matt what we can do and make sure that we have what we need.
But if you're doing the 24th and 25th, just 2 days for staff, it kind of puts us exactly where we were this year, and he made it work. So maybe find out how we.
Well, tryouts started the week before.
They started before that, yeah, because that's the difference because of the timing. So yeah.
So we're sticking with the start date of the 24th. That's the only thing we've decided. Pending the further conversations with.
Further conversations.
But we're hoping to do a 2-day, full day PD, full day start for students on Wednesday.
Full day or half? It's not 2 full PD days. It's the first day is not considered PD, but yes, two teacher only days.
2 teacher only days.
Then students start.
Right. So, we have to continue till next time. Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's more comfortable. We should put a date in which we want to lock and load this though, because it will go into June.
March 12th.
Yeah, March, hopefully the next.
I got it. I promised, I remember my promise, Dr. Jordan, we would not go into May talking about next year's calendar. It's already March.
So just so we
Getting
can
close.
double check everything, is it the third one that we're
Yeah.
having Lisa look over? And okay.
Yes, yeah. Okay. I think we are done. Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Dawn?
Roll call vote.
I don't want to make a motion.
Do we do a roll call? No?
Oh, she's not going to do that.
Okay. Oh, we're not going. Okay, yes. All right, good night, Holliston. Thank you.